Yo, that's hilarious. I can set these I can set my goals. That is fucking funny, dude. Why does it keep spamming my goal? Yo, YouTube, your shit is bugged, bro. What the fuck? Damn, that was good.
It's a scene that left officers shocked.
And saw that there was some legs on the ground, saw that there was blood. I saw that the guy was missing half his face.
A race to find a missing girl.
Any child comes up missing, it pisses me off.
My first thoughts were, I mean, it was like I was literally seeing a ghost.
And the evil behind it all.
There is no doubt in my mind that you are one of the most dangerous men to ever walk on this planet.
Hey everybody, I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we do a deeper dive into the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. Several years ago, the nation was captivated by an unspeakable crime and kidnapping. And what would unfold, we're still trying to explain.
Sharon County 911, where is your husband?
What you're hearing is the frantic call police received on October 15th, 2018. The call originated from the cell phone of Denise Kloss from Barron County, Wisconsin.
Looks like a chick I used to date, that little girl.
The Denise Kloss 911 call is absolutely chilling. You don't hear a whole lot of explanation. You hear some words, but you mainly hear the chaos that's going on.
Then there's quiet.
Hello?
Officers rush to the home of Denise, her husband James, and their 13-year-old daughter Jamie.
Open door. Somebody's down. Somebody's down.
Sheriff's office, who's inside? Watch our asses, John.
When authorities arrive just minutes after the 911 call, they find a gruesome sight.
We got a dead body in this one. We got a body in here, too.
James and Denise Kloss are shot dead.
Dead body right at the front door. Heavy trauma to the face, gunshot, looks like a shotgun shell to the face. There's one shell, expended shell, next to the body. Found another one in the bathroom, almost directly straight back from the front door, in the bathtub, dead.
As for Jamie,
Door's been breached. We're missing somebody.
she's nowhere to be found.
We're still missing a gun? We're missing a lot.
A widespread search for the missing teenager ensues, with the FBI even offering a reward of $25,000 for information
Yo, the
leading
FBI
to
never
Jamie's
asked for
whereabouts.
shit. Love dogs.
There were search
What's up,
teams
dude?
put together. There were thousands of tips rolling.
How you
in.
been, dude?
95% of
How's
the
life?
end up being
I'm about to rip a
nothing.
fat toke,
Canvassing,
so
knocking on doors.
cheers.
They did not exhaust one means to try to find their answer.
We statistically know that every hour that passes in a situation like this where a child is abducted, the chance of finding them alive goes down.
How you doing, my man?
Brutally murdered and she was taken from the house.
Woo!
I mean, there isn't higher stakes than that ever.
About a week later, as Jamie's parents are laid to rest, a startling development. Authorities are alerted to someone breaking into the Kloss home. The burglar is apprehended and ID'd as 32-year-old Kyle Janky Annis.
In all reality, it was her underwear or something like that.
Janky Annis.
Any child comes up missing.
Jakin? What kind of fucking
and makes
name is that, bro? Jesus Christ.
Janky Annis turns
That
out
is a
to
mouthful.
not be the killer,
Janky
just a common
Annis.
criminal who wanted to steal some things.
Turns out to be a massive red herring, but it drains very important resources and manpower at a time when you can't afford to be diverted from the intention of the investigation.
At the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, we were wondering the same thing. Is Jamie out there? Is she even alive? As the days went on, media attention, at least
Hoes,
nationally, started to
bitches and
focus
hoes,
on
drugs and
strategizing
guns.
behind the scenes,
Pop, 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 pop. Am I a good rapper or what,
what
bro?
we could do. I had plans to go out to Wisconsin and see if we could bring more attention to Jamie's case.
Unfortunately for investigators in the Kloss family, with each passing day, the outcome for Jamie is getting worse and worse.
Bitches, hoes, and guns.
Douglas County 911. Hi. I have a young lady at my house right now, and she says her name is Jamie Kloss.
On January 10th, 2019, over 2 months after the killings, Jamie Kloss is suddenly found alive in Gordon, Wisconsin, an hour away from Barron.
Okay, have you seen her photo, ma'am? Yes, it is her. I 100% think it is her. Okay.
For
Cheers.
88 days, I have stood before you and said we would work tirelessly to bring Jamie Kloss home. Today, I can report we have done just that.
When we heard the news that
I like how the cops are pretending
Jamie
like
was
they did
found,
anything.
I can't even describe it to you what happened at the National Center. We were stunned. It was emotional. We were happy.
According to the caller, Kristen Kazinkas, her neighbor, Jeannie Nutter, found Kloss. She gets on the phone and explains what happened.
So how did she come up upon your cabin? I was walking my dog, and we were almost home, and she was walking towards me, crying, saying, "You gotta help me, you gotta help me."
Jamie's ability to escape in this case is amazing to me. I mean, all too often, and unfortunately most of the time, we don't have a positive resolution like this. It's really through the resilience and the courage of the person who's escaped.
When I saw her, I knew she was in trouble because I knew she had, wherever she came from, she left in a hurry because she just had on a sweatshirt and leggings and shoes that were too big for her.
It's rare to have somebody found alive after 48 hours in missing person cases, because the trail dries up very quickly if you're not able to find something within that period of time. Time and distance works against police officers. So 88 days is incredibly remarkable.
My first thoughts were I basically went into shock. Yeah, I mean, it was like I was literally seeing a ghost. I told Jamie when she was sitting on my couch yesterday, I just said, "I am so glad to see you."
Jamie was able to escape, but from who?
Jamie, do you know when he's going to come back? She thought he was going to come back home.
Who's gonna come back?
Jake
Who?
Thomas Patterson,
The fucking kidnapper,
a
obviously.
21-year-old ex-Marine. After Nutter identifies the suspect, Patterson's quickly located by police while in his car and immediately says, "I did it." But when he's thrown in the back of a cruiser, listen to the odd exchange between him and the officer.
You're no longer detained. You're under arrest now, okay?
For what?
Oh, they'll tell you when you get up to the officer.
Someone gonna turn off my car?
Yeah,
do something with it.
The other officer will take care of it for you. It's gonna be a little bit of a drive, so if you want to get comfy.
I don't think that's possible.
On some level, he's confused, he's in shock, even though he knew this probably would be the end of how it all turned out.
Soon after his arrest, Patterson not only admits to police that he kidnapped Jamie and murdered her parents, but he voluntarily provides additional dark details.
I think Jake Patterson almost immediately confessed because he knew that if Jamie ever escaped, he was done for. I mean, there's no debate about what happened. There's no chance of him trying to explain this away.
We would learn he became infatuated with the 13-year-old after randomly seeing her getting on a school bus.
It seems to me like he had this thing of wanting to
This
abduct
guy sounds like a
someone,
fucking loser.
child, and this presented the opportunity for it. He something clicked in him, and it flipped a
I
switch.
think I have some kind of like mental fucking illness to be doing shit like that. Just see someone and instantly just like become obsessed with them.
What was happening?
Not even know anything about them. Fuck. Yo, what's up, Squirt?
I think he was only in that house for 4 minutes or so. So to carry out this entire thing that quickly, it tells me that he had an objective. He knew what he was doing. He had a purpose and a focus. He needed to kill the father first because that's the biggest threat you're going to have.
He actually shot James through the window, point blank, before shooting the front door, kicking it down, and then trying to find where Jamie was.
Getting paid tomorrow, so we good. Let's go, baby.
Both in the tub.
Get that money.
Trying to protect her at that point.
Investigators then realized that Patterson had slipped through their fingers. Let's go back to Deputy John Fick's dash cam. As he rushes to the Kloss home on the night of the murders, notice the car on the left. That was Jake Patterson, driving with a stolen license, and Jamie tied up in the trunk, something officers even picked up on at the time.
That one car was heading out as we were coming, but they yielded. On camera. Camera? Yep.
The car's going that way? That maroon car that yielded? Yeah, you're right. I had it at 54.
We all want to say, darn it, that he should have been caught. The police were that close, but remember, the police had just received
I
a
need
call.
good money, bro. It's the only thing I fucking lack right now. I'm happy nonetheless.
Main
Hey, man.
focus was on getting to that house.
If you're happy without money, getting more money will just make you fucking happier, you know?
To let the police pass.
It's like Biggie says, though, more money, more problems, you know? It's true.
I downloaded the video. I couldn't get anything. Like the headlights were blocking it, and I don't even know if he even had a front license plate.
It's just one of those real unfortunate things that they didn't have the manpower to dispatch someone to follow or get on that car.
When you don't have a lot of money, you see the beauty in things people with money don't have, you know?
Time.
When we come back, we're going to get into the details of Jamie's captivity, and we hear from Patterson himself.
Mr. Patterson, not only were you a danger to the Kloss family,
What the fuck? Redeem toe? Yo, you're a demon, bro. Yo, I was so stoned last night, Sean. You guys had me so fucked up, bro.
But then I shined it again and saw that there was some legs on the ground, saw that there was blood, opened the door, and said that I saw that the guy was missing half his face.
Back on January 10, 2019, 13-year-old Jamie Kloss stunned the world by miraculously escaping.
Bro, I thought I was like dreaming when I fucking I woke up this morning and I had to get on RuneScape and I was like, did I actually lose my fang last night? And I'm like looking, I'm like, did I actually spend $200 on gambling? I was just like fucking out of it, bro.
What exactly happened though during Jamie's 88 days of imprisonment?
You were pretty much there the whole time? Bro, I was so out of it. I was so stoned. Like,
forcing her under his bed for hours.
You didn't see the gambling?
Food,
Yeah.
water, or bathroom breaks. They would play board games, watch TV, and would even sleep.
Couldn't get one fucking bonus other than the one I bought.
Friends of his have said during that time frame they noticed an uptick in his personality, that he was friendly and he seemed to be happier. So I think in his warped mind, he was forming a life together with Jamie, and they were going to, I don't know, maybe live happily ever after.
In this particular case,
You were
it was
fried?
about
Yeah, I was
power
fried.
and control combined. knowing that he had somebody
Took every
who was
toke y'all
young and
purchased, though.
immature, that he could have power over, and she could do whatever he wants her to do.
Patterson, though, never thought Jamie would actually try to escape.
You know, obviously Jamie is under this tremendous fear, and he's using that fear in the beginning to keep her captive. He doesn't have to do much to make her more fearful of him because of what she witnessed at her own house that night.
I think for her, she just kept it together every day. She didn't know when she was going to get out or if she ever was going to. It must have taken everything inside her to just take that moment.
I was
and
fucking
run.
cheeched.
I can't even say enough about how brave and courageous she was that day.
Patterson claims, though, despite his obsession with Jamie, he never sexually assaulted her.
It was never about the sexuality of it. I think it was about the companionship and having somebody that he can hold accountable to him.
Since the
You love
district
weed?
attorney
Yeah.
in that area decided
Sorry.
not to prosecute any charges that related to the behavior of those 88 days, they decided not to put Jamie through any kind of investigation. So we really won't ever really know what happened during those 88 days in full detail.
Patterson's charged with intentional homicide, kidnapping, and armed burglary. As he sat in jail awaiting trial,
Go
he
visit
stuns
her
the
mother for a
public
couple
by
days.
writing
Now
a
she's
letter
in
to the
juvenile
local
hall.
reporter,
She beat the
once
brakes
again
off her
providing
mom.
more
No
answers
shot.
into what he was thinking.
The cops say I planned this
You're
thoroughly,
fucking kidding,
and that
bro.
I said that. They're really good at twisting your words
Like,
around.
bro,
put
what
them in
the
different
fuck?
spots, straight up
Sounds
lies.
like she needs a
Little
fucking
mad
ass
about
whooping,
that.
boy.
Trying to cover up their mistakes, I guess. This was
Jesus
mostly
Christ,
on
how's
impulse.
the mom
I
doing?
don't think like a serial killer.
I think Patterson writing the letter to the local reporter was his way of letting the public know what was happening in his head. It was an atrocious act. Now it's his time to say, you know what? Yeah, I did this, but for the reason is because of these issues that he has.
When asked what was going through his mind when he started perpetrating the crime, Patterson said he was angry and didn't want to do it, but the reason I did this is complicated.
Patterson ends up.
If it's
not
complicated,
fighting the
let's hear it
charges.
and we'll decide
How do
that.
you plead to that charge?
Guilty. Guilty.
Yeah, I remember you saying you were having a hard time with your daughter that day too and shit. Like, what the
I
fuck?
think that he knew he couldn't beat the charges and he wanted it over as soon as possible. In his warped mind again, he did voice some concern about not wanting to put Jamie through a trial. He put her through so much, right? The horrific things that he did to her. And now he has some kind of feigned concern. You know, I'm not a psychologist, but I think that, you know, some of that might have been genuine.
At Patterson's sentencing, it became a question of whether or not this man could ever get a chance at parole. We would hear powerful victim impact statements. but in one of
Hello
the most
there.
dramatic moments, a family attorney
Hello there.
reads a statement from Jamie Kloss.
I don't want to even see my home or my stuff because of the memory of that night.
And use it
My
just for this
parents,
shit
my home,
shotgun. That's
are the
hilarious.
most important things in my
That
life.
shotgun's that bad, eh?
He took them away from me in a way that will always leave me with a horrifying memory. But there are some things that Jake Patterson can never take from me. He can't take my freedom. He thought that he could own me, but he was wrong. I was smarter. I watched his routine and I took back my freedom. I will always have my freedom and he will not.
Maybe marshmallows
Her
would do
family
more
members
damage.
now who are helping raise her gave her the strength to say that she will not let this influence the way she lives the rest of her life, that she will be happy going forward and that he's going to be in her rearview mirror. So I think it's extremely powerful.
You know, the fact that he tried to take things from her, and he did take things from her, but he couldn't take away who she was. I saw it as a very remarkable young woman,
Okay, so I just start left or right
And
with those.
Patterson has some final words himself.
I would do, like, absolutely anything to take back what I did, you know. I would die. I would do absolutely anything to...
Actions and the ideas
Before hitting on round
that
one,
you
that's
had
disgusting.
are not normal. They are shockingly not normal. I have no idea what rehabilitation could be provided for you. No one suggested any rehabilitation because even from your own side, the doctors can't find anything wrong with you.
For a judge to use the harsh language that he did, clearly indicates he was horrified by the events that took place in that house that night and subsequent to that night.
And these crimes rank as the most heinous and dangerous that I have seen either here or anywhere else in the state of Wisconsin.
Dude, it's bad too
perhaps
because
the
there's a
United
challenge to
States.
get 10 kills without reloading on that gun. The standard mag is
Read
10
aloud the words of
insta
Patterson,
kills, bud.
but the defendant wasn't happy.
Insta
She
kills.
was the first girl I saw once I had those ideas in my head. Mr. Patterson, not only
Insta-kills,
were you
those
a
are your
danger to the
friends.
Kloss family,
And that was his way of exerting his last morsel of power in that setting in order to show the public that, again, he is in charge.
there is no doubt in my mind that you are one of the most dangerous men to ever walk on this planet.
Dangerous? I don't know if he's
Badler
dangerous.
sentenced Patterson to 2 life terms without the possibility of
This is
parole,
deranged.
plus an additional 40 years.
Today was a very important step in the process of helping Jamie to move forward. We are satisfied with the outcome.
Shouldn't be that bad.
and
Nah,
believe
they'll
that
probably
will
buff
give
it.
Jamie some much-needed peace of mind.
Homie is definitely fucking
Jake
deranged
Patterson
and
spends
shit.
the rest of
Deserves a
his
bullet
life
in his
behind
head.
Bars wrestling with the decisions he made.
Without a gun,
he may
he's not
also
really that
have to
dangerous,
wrestle
you know.
to save his life. In video obtained from the New Mexico Corrections Department, Patterson seen getting into a physical altercation with another inmate after he reportedly was harassed for the crimes he committed against a minor.
It's typical when an offender abuses children, there's some kind of jailhouse code that if they
Oh, this
get in
guy's gonna get
contact with
fucking
somebody who
stabbed
is
to death for
incarcerated
sure.
those things, they're going to make it known that it's unacceptable. And a lot of times those people end up dead.
As for Jamie, her aunt and guardian Jennifer Smith says she's doing good, surrounded by loved ones, and is taking life day by day.
Jamie?
All small things, but if it's 10...
She later said she thought
Not only that, but entering...
to be
I'm in number. I'm at the
Yo, that's a check that. That's a cop, and she shoots the fucking the guy. She goes into it. Yo, this cop, bro. In this video here, this cop goes into a fucking separate house, like a house she says she thought was hers, and shoots this fucking guy. And like, yeah, it's just absurd, bro. Like, how do you go into a house that you did, like, you know, you go into your own house every single day? How do you not know what your house looks like and shit? Just wild. Just a wild case. Imagine they nerfed it, bruh. Wouldn't even put it past them.
on Prime Crime.
He's completely dead.
A young life is cut short.
She shot twice, closed the gap, and shot 4 more times.
But the question of why
Sounds like self-defense.
Always put pressure on me to orgasm.
is not so simple to answer.
I saw him right here. I gave him his nose job. He wanted.
Yo, that's cold. What the fuck? Bruh.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we break down the most high-profile and memorable.
That's
true crime
cold
cases.
as fuck. I gave him the
young
nose
couple's
job he
relationship
wanted.
comes to a lethal end, and it's the police interrogation
That's
tape
crazy.
that leaves everyone asking, why did this happen?
Bro, that's huge.
October 12th, 2012,
Dude.
Highland Heights, Kentucky. The man you're seeing is Ryan Poston, a 29-year-old lawyer who had plans to go out that night. But as you're about to see, that never happened.
Campbell County 911. Ma'am, I killed my boyfriend in self-defense.
That is 21-year-old grad student Shayna Hubers, Poston's on-again, off-again girlfriend.
I killed him in self-defense. Okay. He's completely dead. How long ago did you shoot him? Like 10 or 15 minutes ago. Are they gonna arrest me? Ma'am, I don't know what they'll do. I mean, I'm not a murderer.
Later on that night, Hubers is brought into a room at police headquarters.
Did I do the right thing?
Ma'am, I don't know what's going on.
Can I talk to you?
Even without an attorney
That's like a fucking investigator's wet dream right there. She's just like, can I talk to you? Yeah, you spill out your heart, sweet.
Decided to just open up to the various officers that came into the room.
I think that there are two different ways to look at that. Number one, you could say that that's something that an innocent person would do because they want to explain the situation and have the police better understand why they're sitting in that room before them. Or it could be looked at that she thinks that she's smarter than all the investigators.
I shot him in self-defense because he's done stuff before where I've hit my head on a headboard and could have died.
Hubers lays out the details of the shooting.
He was physically violent with me and threw me around the room, into the dining room, all the way into the living room, back into the dining room. I knew he was gonna hit me again or throw me or something again. And there was a gun laying right there. And I knew what the next thing might have been. And I picked up the gun in the middle of him doing something with his arm or saying something crazy. Shot him.
When there's a couple where one person largely outweighs the other, that if there is some sort of abuse, that weapons must or can be used to overcome that fear of death and imminent harm.
He's so much bigger than me. That him hitting me versus me hitting him is not really an even fight. He's pulled guns on me as jokes before, and I think that was in mind.
It was commonplace for Ryan to have guns, ammunition strewn about his house in all different areas. He was a gun advocate. And
what would you do if I shot you right now? What would you do if I was afraid.
However, there are some issues with Hubers' account.
You can see from the living room that's not how it happened. If you walk in there, things thrown. It doesn't look right. You know, it's a disarray.
The crime scene shows us there were no disturbances in the living room that would prove that any kind of knockout, drag-out fight even occurred. The coffee table, the kitchen table were covered with items, nothing was knocked over, and the TV that she claimed she was shoved into had layers of dust on it and nothing was disturbed.
When I shot him in the face, and he had put his arm across the table and had it in my face, he wasn't completely standing up. He was like this.
The shell casings that were found in the home, 2 were in one area, 4 were in another, but all in close proximation. What it showed is that she shot twice, closed the gap, and shot 4 more times.
And he was laying with his face on the table, like twitching. I knew he was gonna die. A very slow and painful death. So I shot him enough time to kill him so that he wouldn't suffer. Thought he was completely dead and he was laying there still twitching and making noises. And I shot him in the head.
Shooting somebody initially in the head is an example of somebody who wants somebody dead. Otherwise, self-defense would be shooting as fast as you can and then leaving the scene, which she had ample opportunity to do.
I killed him in a mechanism of self-defense, or shot him in a mechanism of self-defense, and then knew he was going to die, so put him out of the misery.
I shot him multiple times to put him out of his misery is a curious statement. It's a hard enough thing to do to just kill someone. It's a hard thing to do to pull the trigger and shoot someone. Potentially being something that is more nefarious, more sort of evil than perhaps it actually was. Do I think she was trying to put him out of his misery? I think she thinks she was trying to put him out of his misery.
I picked up the phone and called my mother and said, Mama, what did I do? And she said, you call the cops, Shayna. You gotta call the cops.
The fact that she did call her mother and call 911 10 to 15 minutes after the incident, she wanted to ensure that Ryan was dead.
I don't want to go to prison. I don't think I deserve to.
As you'll see, though, this case isn't open and shut.
I've learned that a person
Bro,
isn't
Blair
afraid to
just
have any
Blair just got hooked up with a free obsidian plate body, bro, for his new account and shit. Like, that's fucking massive for his account, dude. Oh my god. This is getting fucking gifted out here. Hey, this is fucking good. %. Alright, I gotta take a piss real quick.
kind of remorse or empathy or dealing with some kind of mental health issue.
Hopefully I don't die. It'd be horrendous.
I can only imagine what's going through these people's heads, you know? I feel like everyone knows me well enough to know that, like, I didn't just, like, plot and kill a dude.
In 2012, out in Kentucky, 21-year-old Shayna Hubers is telling police the circumstances surrounding the shooting death of her boyfriend, 29-year-old Ryan Poston.
It wasn't killing him because I was spiteful. It wasn't killing him because I'm done with the relationship. It was, you're evil. And you've been throwing me around the room like a rag doll.
She claimed Poston got physical with her that night, and she killed him to save her life.
One blow, and he could kill me. If worst came to worst, I'm rather he's dead than I'm hurt, because I could have been really badly hurt.
But as she goes on, certain aspects of the story are peculiar, like how many times she shot him.
I shot it once, and didn't shoot again for a while. But I was watching him die. And it was so painful to watch him die. I walked around the table and shot him where I knew he would die immediately. I shot him probably 6 times.
And despite Hubers describing a chaotic fight,
you can't throw somebody into the ground. I probably have rug burns. I probably do have some bruises.
there was no evidence of injuries and the crime scene wasn't in disarray. But Hubers displays other odd behavior when alone in the interview room, such as dancing, singing, and seemingly boasting.
I did. Yes, I did. I can't believe
Lack of remorse, the lack of empathy. Again, she's showing she's in a place of complete self-preservation.
Do you think they're going to take me to jail? Okay. Well, here's a good question. If I had to go to jail, can you shower there? I have to shower in front of people? Oh, oh my God.
Is it indicative of no remorse? It's certainly possible, but I think that there's an alternative. I don't think she's that sophisticated in her thinking, somewhat childlike, that these were kinds of behaviors that she was doing as self-soothing, keep her distracted from what's going on internally.
I don't know if anyone will ever want to marry me if they know that I killed a boyfriend in self-defense. Not funny, but...
Shayna's fixation on how others will perceive her for killing Ryan is yet another example of her inability to place herself in Ryan's shoes, and even the members of his family who she had grown to know.
I can't even imagine what people are going to say about me. I'm going to have a lot of enemies.
Yet there may be something a lot deeper happening here.
When I'm looking at Shayna right now, I am seeing someone who is suffering from borderline personality disorder symptoms, issues with her own identity, issues with relationships, can't manage her emotions.
And that leads to one of the most shocking comments Hubers made.
I couldn't stand to watch him twitch. I knew he was going to die or have a completely deformed face. He's very vain and wants to get a nose job. And I shot him right here. I gave him his nose job. He wanted.
The fact that she was making jokes about maiming and killing an individual who she claims that she loved just showed how disconnected
This chick's
she
got
really was,
like some
perhaps
very
pathologically,
exaggerated mouth
from the
movements.
acts that she did.
When we return,
Bet you she sucks a
more
great
of the
cock.
backstory between Ryan and Shayna that may provide a further explanation of what happened behind closed doors.
This whole deal, I'll just cut to the chase. Did you go to meet Ryan?
He didn't show up.
And did you ever hear from Ryan again?
No.
I'm not your typical murderer. He said, you're just a hillbilly from Kentucky. And I am. I guess the hillbilly came out of me.
In October 2012, 21-year-old Kentucky woman Shayna Hubers is recounting to law enforcement how she shot and killed her 29-year-old boyfriend Ryan Poston in what she claims was self-defense.
I feel really bad about it because I really loved him, but he was so abusive to me.
As the interview progresses, Shayna begins to show a deeper lack of remorse.
I could be sitting here like, oh, I hope Ryan's family doesn't hate me. He deserved it. He deserved it.
Is there a possibility that she viewed her life as being in danger? It's certainly possible. But I think for her, it was more that she wasn't getting what she needed out of the relationship, and that made her angry, which is one of the common issues and common complaints of someone with borderline personality disorder, is that they cannot seem to manage their own emotions.
And he had put his arm across the table and had it in my face and was screaming at me at the top of his lungs. Hillbilly.
Fuck you, hillbilly.
I hate your Eastern Kentucky accent. I hate everything about you for what you are.
The investigation would show that Ryan and Shayna had a toxic relationship.
Yeah,
It appears that this was a classic tumultuous relationship, but it did seem from the evidence more one-sided, meaning he was trying to get out of the relationship and trying to end the relationship, where she was continually invested in the relationship, showing up unannounced. The sheer volume of communication between the two was troubling. There was approximately 50,000 text messages, approximately 20,000 social media communications, and thousands of photographs. And it was largely initiated by her.
In fact, the night that Shayna killed Ryan, the young attorney had a date. With who? Miss Ohio.
We became connected on Facebook.
How long would you say you all were messaging via Facebook?
Say just a few days.
How did he strike you?
Funny and smart.
Where did you all agree to meet?
We agreed to meet at like a gas station that was like nearby at first, and then I didn't hear from him, and so I just went to the place to kind of like see if maybe it was bad communication, and I kind of like looked around a little bit, but he wasn't there.
Did you wait?
Yeah.
Did Ryan ever show?
No.
And did you ever hear from Ryan again?
No.
I don't think Ryan was ever in the relationship the way Shayna would have wanted him to be. Throughout
My homie Rena that beat up that doctor and smashed his window went for his judicial hearing today, and what happened?
Have been something that kind of prompted Shayna to
Brian,
engage in
yeah.
an act that she probably
I knew what you
wouldn't
meant.
have done otherwise.
I was like begging him to stay in the relationship and be with me. But you get to a point where you've had enough.
Shayna does seem to believe that she's justified in murdering him because she was angry and she just could not take being dumped and moving on. And that was her complete revenge, was that if
Can't believe
I
it's
have
been
him,
22
nobody
months,
will.
bro. I know.
Right now, Shayna? Okay.
Almost 2 years. That's crazy to think about since that happened. I remember the day you fucking came in my chat and told me.
Arrested and charged with the murder of Ryan Poston. But here's where the story takes a wild detour.
And I'm still sitting here doing the
In
same shit.
2015, Hubers went to trial. She was
Jesus.
convicted by a jury of her
I need to get my
peers
life
and
together.
sentenced to 40 years
I'm a
in
fucking
prison.
loser.
Yet that verdict was overturned.
Her conviction was overturned because juror 499 did not disclose that they had a felony conviction. And in Kentucky, a felony conviction precludes juror service.
Now Hubers had a second chance at freedom, and her new defense team went forward with a different strategy.
She lost the initial trial because of, number one, her only form of defense was self-defense. She hadn't introduced the extreme emotional
Weren't you the one
disturbance
saying
angle
bread
until the
ain't
second trial.
everything?
Extreme emotional disturbance
Yeah, for
is
sure.
shown by the
I need to get my
defense
life
when
together,
the
though.
individual becomes so enraged
Doesn't mean I'm not happy.
or
I
upset
just need to get my life together.
that their judgment and their ability to act is clouded due to this extreme emotional disturbance.
Up next, will this...
Like, I'm not in any debt or nothing, so I'm not stressing over money, you
When
know?
he was first shot, he let out a really loud noise that sounded like an animal. It sounded like a bear.
She's gonna say I shot him and he sounded like a bear. Scared me. Thought he, thought he was gonna eat me.
Would have been like, good for her.
In 2018, Kentucky woman Shayna Hubers heads to trial for a second time for the murder of her boyfriend Ryan Poston, who she shot to death in his apartment after what she says was a violent encounter. While a jury had previously convicted Hubers, that verdict was thrown out due to juror misconduct. Now, in her retrial, instead of relying solely on self-defense, her team focused more on an alternative defense that Shayna acted due to an extreme emotional disturbance.
Saw 233. Oh yeah.
I recall
I remember my buddy's dad went into prison, went in looking like a little fucking toothpick. Dude came out and you couldn't even see his neck. He was so built. It was funny.
just kill you right now.
In order to understand the circumstances of that night, Hubers first explained both the trauma in her life
I was sexually assaulted in the restroom by a stranger.
and what she claimed was mistreatment and abuse at the hands of Poston.
I feared him. I felt like I needed to do what he was telling me to do.
So one of the good arguments for extreme emotional disturbance was this perceived
50s.
abuse that she had discussed, that she was put down, insulted, that he had continually broken up with her, and that she felt continually rejected.
Ryan
Might as well go for
always
base
put
50s
pressure
across the
on me to
board.
orgasm. He put pressure on me to get breast implants. He felt like my lack of, or my inability to orgasm was due to psychological trauma from my past. The sex became rough. Ryan did something I didn't want him to do.
And this all came to a head on the night of the shooting.
And he picked me up from an awkward angle and threw me from the doorway. He screamed at me, "You're a f***ed up person."
But she wasn't wrong.
Because you were touched when you were a little girl, and that's why you can't orgasm, and that's why I can't love you, and that's why no one will ever be able to love you. Standing
Yeah, I don't think he ever said
and he
that.
was reaching across the table, and I don't know if he was reaching for the gun or reaching for me, and I got up off the floor and I grabbed the gun and I shot him.
Defense suggesting extreme emotional disturbance. I can see where they're coming from, given the diagnosis of borderline personality disorder. What they're saying is that in the heat of this moment, right, something was going on that led me to thinking things that I wouldn't have thought otherwise. I couldn't think of the right thing to do at that moment.
The prosecution, though, said what Shayna did was a cold, deliberate, and unjustified killing.
On that night, Shayna Hubers murdered Ryan Poston. Not out of self-defense. Not because she wasn't in control. But because she was not going to allow him to reject her and move on to be with someone else.
The fact that Shayna fired at his face showed that she wanted him dead. Continued shooting is what we call intentional overkill. And plus, we already know that she had a plan of killing him and pretending like it was an accident when she texted a friend earlier that week.
To whom Ms. Huber sent this message?
To myself, to me. When I go to the shooting range with Ryan tonight, I want to turn around, shoot and kill him, and play like it's an accident.
Interestingly, the statements that the defendant used on the 911 tape and when she was speaking with officers were really the worst things against her.
He was twitching and I knew he was going to die anyway, and he was making funny noises. I shot her a couple more times.
I hate him, the way that he spoke to me, but the things that he was doing.
This extreme reaction to this abandonment could really send someone over edge. That said, there's a real disconnect between that emotional reaction and murder.
Has the jury reached a verdict?
Yes, sir.
Is what you have the jury's verdict in your hand?
Yes.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Shayna Hubers, guilty of murder under instruction number 5.
Despite a different defense strategy, going to trial for a second time was a risk that ultimately didn't pay off, because not only was Hubers convicted again, unlike the jury in her first trial that recommended 40 years in prison, this panel had other ideas.
We, the jury, fixed the defendant, Shayna Hubers' punishment for the offense of murder at life imprisonment.
This doesn't necessarily mean that the 27-year-old will spend the rest of her life behind bars. Hubers is eligible for parole in 2032.
When you're looking at the parole board, they take some factors into the case. Had the person gotten educated while they were in jail? Are they reformed? 20 years from now, we don't know how Shayna is going to evolve in the prison system. Personally, I don't think she deserves it. She took Ryan's life. When somebody takes somebody's life intentionally, they should serve a life in prison without any opportunity to be released.
Will be stop of service.
Ryan was in law school at the time, and he came to me and he hands me this paper. It was a form to change his name. He changed his name because he said, "Dad, this is who I am, Ryan Carter Poston, and I wanted you to know that." And I said, "Great, you don't have to do this for me, though. This is for you." And so that's what he did. That's just how we raised him.
The death of Ryan Poston is senseless, it is tragic, and it's just overall incredibly sad. Whether Shayna Hubers is ever paroled, it won't change what she did or what she said. She'll always have to live with that. And for someone who seemingly was so concerned with how the world would see her, for many, they'll only view her as one thing, a murderer. That's all we have for you here on Prime Crime.
What the fuck am I doing?
As always, thanks for joining us, and until next time, stay safe.
The fuck was I doing right there? Jesus.
You will not believe what you can find at Michael's this holiday. I know, right?
These two videos hide a disturbing secret. On October 9th, 2013, soon-to-be missing teenager Abby Hernandez left school at 2:31 p.m. wearing a striped
like
sweater,
65 across the
jeans,
board.
and boots. For the longest time, this has been Abby's last known location.
Abby, you're a strong
Get
young
her
woman.
down.
I believe you're alive.
Get her
and I know
down,
it's
bud.
louder than fear.
A whole year later, she reappeared at her mother's doorstep, wearing the exact
Bud.
same clothes.
Missing teen Abigail Hernandez returned to her mom's house but did not give police her alleged kidnapper's name.
The 14-year-old was allegedly strapped to a bed, tortured with a stun gun, and forced to wear a shock collar.
But what's even stranger is
That's
that
fucked.
after she returned, the public's reaction wasn't relief, but anger.
Was the child held prisoner 9 long months? Was that for real?
Sounds like Abby's a punk teenager who ran away.
Doesn't sound like she's in any danger.
She should be forced to pay back the state.
This whole story has been fishy from the very beginning.
Is there anything you'd like to say?
Nope.
Victims don't act like that. I'm not buying it.
We just want to have some answers.
There's still lots of questions regarding Abby's disappearance.
But as the details of her abduction unraveled, it became clear to the police that they weren't dealing with an ordinary criminal.
Law enforcement says this device is a bomb.
We've heard a report that he believed there was a zombie apocalypse.
Building firearms at home.
She says, I know the name, but I can't tell you because he's gonna come and kill us. He's everywhere.
With the whole world against her and an armed psychopath on the loose, Abby now has to find the courage to finally reveal the truth.
Abby!
It's October 9th, 2013.
Irritate.
14-year-old Abby Hernandez is heading home after a long day at Kenneth High School. She
Irritate.
walks with a slight limp because her new boots, an early birthday present from her mother Xenia, are making her feet sore. But she's looking forward to her party, coming up in only 3 days. Once she finally reaches the schoolyard, she sees the bus pulling away. With no one to pick her up, she starts the long walk home. 2 hours later, Xenia returns from the hospital where she worked to find her house empty. This was unusual since her youngest daughter never did anything out of the ordinary without first calling or texting her.
Abby always has been very kind, always loved animals, a little bit of a tomboy, very cheerful, happy. I was worried, but she should be somewhere. You know, she probably is at school with her friends. I was like, okay, I'll go to school. And the librarian says I saw her leave. And that's when I got very worried. She had an injury, broke her leg, appendicitis, who knows, like got hit by a car. I called the hospital at that time. I said, no, they have not seen her.
Most people would immediately think that Abby ran away, but Xenia knew her daughter and never even considered it. On the contrary, with Abby's birthday coming up in only 3 days, it seemed impossible that something like this could happen.
She was very enthusiastic about it. We were planning a whole big party to have friends over.
She called Abby's best friend, who told her that, mere minutes before she left, the
Did
two
the
snapped a
fireball
selfie together,
just
but
break?
nothing seems wrong with Abby.
Fireball, what do you mean?
Picture of her was the picture her and I.
Oh, the fireball, the brazier, yeah. It breaks, and then I gotta like repair it.
Even the police officers.
Well, I'm doing a boss right now. So what this is? So yeah, Squirt, what this is? You like this brazier here, and like I have up in the top left, here. I got my warmth. I get more warmth by drinking these potions. I just put it up to 98%. This Wintertodd's energy, this like green and red bar here, this is like the boss's health. How I get the health down is by running around lighting these braziers and then throwing logs into it. Well, you just light the braziers and the health goes down, but you get XP and points by putting the kindling into the thing, right? The more points you get, the more rewards you get. I'm trying to sit here for the next like 3-4 hours. Can you lose? Yeah, so if my warmth goes all the way down to 0, I die. So I gotta make sure my warmth never hits 0. You know what I mean? And what I want to do is make sure that the Wintertodt boss doesn't reach 0 either for a long time. So I can sit here and just milk out XP and fucking points, you know? Come on, man. Where'd you go? I see you barking at me, boy. Man, I woke up this morning, boys, and I'm like on the outer edge of my bed, literally with my ass hanging off almost onto the floor. And my dog's like sleeping right in the middle of my bed, and I'm like, what the fuck? How does this work? And then see these little, like, these guys here? These guys here, they're called pyromancers. What I gotta do is, if they die, so if you look on the left here, you see this little, like, magic hat? He's on the ground over here. I gotta run over and give him a dose of potion and heal him. Because if I don't heal him, then I won't be able to, then I wouldn't be able to light the brazier, you know?
Done had caused her disappearance.
Classic teenage girl.
That's what she appeared to be.
Within hours, Abby's disappearance made
any action in this just gives you points.
After all, New Hampshire is the second safest state in the country, and the last high-profile abduction there dated back to 1986.
We are also following new developments in the search for a missing teenager from Conway tonight.
The search ramped up incredibly fast. The Conway police started, the Attorney General's office got involved, the FBI, state police, basically created a dragnet in the North Conway area. looking for Abby Hernandez.
Following 3 days of relentless search, Abby's birthday loomed in, and the Conway community came together to hold a vigil for the missing teenager.
Happy birthday to you. I miss you so badly, and Sarah and I think about you all the time. And we want you back with us, please, and we love you. We miss you.
We spoke exclusively with Abby Hernandez's mother last night. She says she sees Abby in her dreams and doesn't want to wake up because that's when this nightmare returns.
The things about the break here.
She couldn't have known then, but Xenia's words mirrored
I
her
just
daughter's
tank it. I
situation
don't
all
even
too
care
well. It began
because I
3
just
days
carry
earlier,
3
when
potions
Abby
on
was
me at
walking
all
home from
times.
school.
You know.
Halfway through, a car stopped beside
More
her.
than enough
The
just to
driver
sit there and
leaned
tank
over
this shit.
pointed at her slight limp before asking her if she'd like a ride home. Feeling the blisters on her feet, the young teenager reluctantly accepted.
I just feel so bad that I got in the car.
You were 14. You were a child.
Yeah. But I try to tell myself.
As soon as they reached town, the driver sharply turned towards an isolated parking lot.
I definitely got a gut feeling that something's wrong. So I said, you know what? I actually live really close to here. I think I can walk. I unbuckled my seatbelt. He kind of straightened his legs and he was digging for something. Then I saw a gun.
Under duress, Abby was handcuffed and blindfolded. As they drove off, the man kept shoving her down underneath the dashboard to hide her from any passerby. She tried to push him back, but things escalated quickly.
I felt this stammering pain in my leg, and I thought, oh my God, I've been shot. I did not want to die.
Despite her fear, Abby kept fighting back, but each time she pushed him away, the pain in her leg amplified. That's when she realized that she wasn't being shot at, but shocked repeatedly with a stun gun. Powerless, she tried to reason with him instead.
I said, I don't judge you for this. If you let me go, I won't tell anybody. And I asked him, are you gonna rape me? And he told me, call me master.
After a long ride, the kidnapper stopped the car. Abby was dragged into some kind of building and thrown onto a dirty mattress before the man removed her blindfold. Looking around, she noticed metal floors, walls covered in soundproof padding, and padlocked latches on every door. But the worst was the figure standing right in front of her. Hiding his face under a golden Halloween mask, her captor proceeded to chain each
it's pretty crazy is like the pictures,
of her
bro.
limbs to metal bars surrounding the
Of
mattress.
the actual fucking
And then
place.
he
That's crazy.
Put like a t-shirt over my head and then a motorcycle helmet over that. He said, if you try to scream or try to escape or make any effort to escape, there will be consequences. I can blow your brains out. I can slit your throat right open.
The next 3 days are difficult to describe. Stuck in a constant loop of abuse and torture, Abby had to live through a nightmare surpassing anything she could have ever imagined.
He played heavy metal music really loud, and I was gagged and everything. I didn't know if it was day or night. And I remember praying to God, and I remember I never said, like amen in my mind. I never wanted to end my prayers because I didn't want God to leave me.
The search for Abby continues again tomorrow morning.
He eventually told me that I was on the news. Everybody was looking for me. He said, I'm gonna let you see it. He held his phone around me and he let me watch the press conference where my mom was looking for me. That's when I really wanted to cry.
And we want you back with us, please.
I think maybe that's when I did cry for the first time there.
And nobody knows where you are. Nobody knows what you're going through.
Right.
Abby's horrifying ordeal continued for almost 2 weeks until her captor asked her to write a letter to her mother, convinced that this was the only way the police would ever stop looking for her. His instructions were to make it look like she had run away, but Abby had other plans. Seeing this as her only opportunity to contact the outside world, the teenager attempted to carve a small message on the back of the page using her fingernails.
He said, help, I was kidnapped. I thought, oh my God, I'm gonna die tonight or I'm gonna escape somehow. He said, I found your messages, and I just felt my heart sink. It's like, oh my God, he's gonna kill me.
The kidnapper seemingly had no intention to kill Abby for the time being, but cruelly punished her nonetheless.
He said, I'm thinking of finding something a little more humane for you. He said, I'm thinking of a shock collar. They're like dogs wear. He put it on me, and he held a stun gun to my feet, and it was really horrible. And I remember I tried not to scream, but ultimately I had to scream. Probably the most pain I've ever experienced.
This is torture.
Yeah, it is. I just really wanted to live, though.
Still hoping that the police would stop looking for Abby if they thought she had run away, the masked man forced the teenager to write a second letter.
This time he made me say, Dear Mom, I'm sorry I did this.
The letter would take another week to reach Xenia. 1 month after Abby's disappearance, this was the first sign that the teenager was still alive.
It was really like numbing for the first maybe 4 weeks, and then I received a letter. I can't believe it, and I'm happy beyond belief. And I'm also confused about some of the language. It's her, but it's not her.
As any mother would be able to guess, even though she could recognize Abby's handwriting, Xenia couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right with the letter's content.
Dear Mom, I miss you and love you more than you can imagine. I'm sorry I did this. I've seen the newspaper and TV reports. And to answer your questions, yes, I'm alive. I miss you, Mom, but I won't tell you where I am.
The police leaned towards Xenia's opinion too. They even prohibited the information from being relayed to the public for Abby's sake.
We were able to confirm her DNA profile on the letter, but how she came to write that letter, nobody was sure. If the victim had somehow been able to sneak a letter out, if she was in fact kidnapped, if her captor knew that, she was at greater risk.
Attorney General Jane Young soon realized the letter was their only card. If they hoped to find Abby, they had to risk it, reveal its existence, and ask the public for help.
Virtual crime scene investigation last week. It was an outbreak
In fact, written by Abby.
that killed 5 people, so I had to use forensic science and the 5-step scientific method to solve it. At 98.7, bro, that's insane.
Her,
Good shit.
and her safety is still
Good shit, bro.
in question.
The fact that she had the ability to write, send a
Who was the call? Like, it was an outbreak. An outbreak? What do you mean an outbreak? Like a disease outbreak?
As a missing person case.
But that press conference had an unanticipated side effect. The public opinion suddenly turned against the missing teenager.
There's still lots of questions regarding Abby's disappearance.
We just want to have some honest answers.
One of the things that we obviously can't control is what that court of public opinion is. I think people have formed very ardent opinions as to what they think happened.
Sounds like Abby's a punk teenager who ran away.
Doesn't sound like she's in any danger.
She should be forced to pay back the state.
This whole story has been fishy from the very beginning.
As disinterest grew, so did the rumors, especially at Kenneth's high school.
Come on,
Abby,
look
her
at Sean,
best
we got
friend
that
Miranda,
knowledge,
her
dog.
boyfriend Jimmy all attended.
Reporters, they would say, if it's a runaway, we can't cover it, it's not news.
It was definitely a hot topic for gossip. Being in high school, most people want to assume, oh, she was pregnant. That must be why, that she ran away.
But the police had already cleared her boyfriend Jimmy as a suspect. The Attorney General had a choice to make. Either she declared Abby a runaway or an abductee. Thankfully for Abby, Jane Young chose the latter.
People just don't disappear off the face of the earth, especially a 14-year-old girl. She didn't drive. We knew that there was money at home that she didn't take. She had only the clothes on her back. No matter where she was, it fit the definition of kidnapping.
The lack of media interest slowed the influx of tips from the public to a drag, and quickly, the case went cold. However, Xenia refused to let her daughter's story die. As the months passed by, she continued making public appearances alongside Jane Young. There, she read her desperate pleas out loud in front of the few reporters who still thought her story worthy of the evening news.
Dear Abby, I believe you're out there somewhere, watching and listening to me right now. I miss you and love you so much more than you can imagine. Abby, you're a strong young woman, and I'm staying strong for you.
Excuse me.
You are courageous, you are smart, and you are beautiful. Abby, you matter to me. I believe you're alive, and I know that hope speaks louder than fear. Abby, I keep having a dream where you come home, and I give you the biggest hug ever. I know in my heart, this dream means something.
For an older woman, this lady is rather stunning.
To God, it will
Goddamn.
come true.
She's gonna age like fine wine, boys.
Mom.
5 months later, in a small town 30 miles north of Conway, 34-year-old firearm machinist Nathaniel Kibbe was heading home when a female driver accidentally hit his car. Furious, he got out and knocked the woman down to the ground using the handle of his pistol. Unbeknownst to the police, this seemingly random act of violence had actually been committed by the same man who kidnapped Abby 6 months earlier. Following the assault, Kibbe was arrested in order to surrender his most precious possession, his extensive gun collection.
We knew, he's probably going to argue everything you're going to say, and he's going to have some sort of, I know my constitutional rights, and argue that point.
He had very strong beliefs about the Constitution,
and you know its
That
origins.
shit's
and its
wild. It's
meaning.
hot as
In a
fuck.
move completely
And
inconsistent
make your
with his
move.
character, Kibbe called the police himself.
We need to
ahead
do
of the day
some
to
out
surrender,
of school
asking
studying,
them
girl.
to come and collect his guns right away.
Let
This is
me
the first
let me
time for
investigate this
myself
crime
that-
scene. Let me investigate your crime scene, honey.
Anyone has contacted us ahead of the paperwork getting to us, so that was odd.
Once on Kibbe's property, police officer Eric Benjamin, who knew him personally, couldn't help but notice the oversized shipping container in the backyard. When asked what was inside, Kibbe dismissed the question, citing that the court order required him to surrender his weapons and nothing else.
We didn't have any reason to get closer, and he made sure of that.
On top of that, Abby's disappearance was now far from the headlines. After 5 months, most of the journalistic community concluded she ran away. Most, but not all. The local news still covered the case and the efforts made by Abby's friends to reach out to the missing teenager.
The words, "We miss you, Abby," flash across the new video posted on the Bring Abby Home website. It's filled with messages from friends.
Dear Abby, I cannot tell you enough how much you are missed. Hi, Abby. I know I haven't seen you in a while.
I really need you back. There's nobody else like you.
Letters are also posted on the website. One friend writes, "One of the hardest things is knowing that I can't talk to you when I need you the most." Friends share their sadness, confusion, and their hope that these messages will be
Yeah,
heard
they're a little
somewhere by Abby.
But yeah, we just really, really miss you, Abby. Please be home soon.
Following Kibbe's clash with the police, the man became increasingly paranoid. This changed the dynamic inside the bunker. Abby was now chained up at all times, and Kibbe installed tubes and pumps by the side of her bed so that the teenager could drink on her own while he sometimes stayed out of the bunker for days. Eventually, Kibbe's paranoia reached its climax, and he made an unexpected move.
He said, "You know too much." He said, "So I need to move you. Like, we can't stay here." He put me in the trunk of the car, and we drove for a really long time. He carried me over his shoulder into a room, and he dumped me on a mattress. He made a room for me, which is where I lived for months. But I noticed on the door there were like screws and then wires. And he told me that he tripped the door so that if it, for any reason it was busted open, the room would catch on fire. When he tied me up, he said, "Do you want to know how I know how to do this?" He told me about his experiences in juvenile prison and about how they abused down there.
6 months into her captivity, this was the first time Kibbe opened up to the young teenager, and over the course of the following weeks, their conversation kept growing. Kibbe, an atheist and objectivist, would debate with Abby about the existence of God and his libertarian ideals. As much as she noticed the man enjoyed these exchanges, Abby still saw him as a monster. After all, even though the worst of the torture was behind her, he continued to abuse her almost every day.
Did the whips stop?
No. No.
That happened throughout your captivity.
Yeah. But one time he fell asleep with me. I was facing the door, and I woke up, I wasn't wearing a blindfold. So I remember rolling over and I saw his face, and I quickly sat up and I covered my eyes because I was afraid he would kill me now. Because he said I needed to forget what his face looked like.
But as the weeks went by, Abby realized something. The more she befriended Kibbe, the less violent and abusive he became. An avid reader, he gave her loads of books to keep her occupied during that period. Amongst them was a cookbook that would later reveal itself to be the key to her kidnapper's demise.
You know, being there for like 9 months, I kind of eventually became weirdly comfortable. And he always
Called
told
the
me,
Stockholm
he said,
syndrome.
"You're like the closest thing I'll ever have to a daughter." I guess he kind of looked at me like he wanted to teach me stuff. So anyway, he had a cookbook, and I would just read the cookbook. But there was a name written in, block letters, and the name was Nate Kibbe. I asked him, I said, "Who's Nate Kibbe?" He looked a little disappointed, and he just kind of breathed, and he said, "How do you know my name?"
Time went on, and Abby learned a lot more about her kidnapper. Not only did he stop wearing his mask around her, but he also shared more about his disturbing past and beliefs.
Oh, buddy.
From Ayn Rand
Relax.
to the signification of the Gadsden flag, Kibbe lectured Abby about libertarianism often, and, for that reason, she wasn't surprised when he came up with a scheme to strike back at the government he hated so much.
He said, "I'm thinking of making counterfeit money," because he said morally, they owe me basically. So he said, "Let's make some fake money." And part of how I gained his trust, I guess, was, I went along with whatever he wanted to do.
As Abby and Kibby spent more time together printing money, his interest in her faded. The abuse didn't stop, but he began seeing sex workers instead most of the time. One of them, 27-year-old Lauren Monday from Nashua, had a peculiar encounter with him.
I just felt from him like he needed somebody to talk to, and that's all he wanted to do. He said he's done bad things, said, you know, we all have done bad things in life.
The pair rented a hotel room, but according to Lauren, Kibby didn't even want her services, only emotional support and reassurance.
He rubbed my head and played with my hair and rubbed my face until I fell asleep.
When she woke up, Lauren found a pile of $50 bills on the table, but no signs of Kibby. Later that day, she tried to use that money to buy groceries at the local Walmart.
The cashier grabbed it and she said, yeah, just give me 1 minute. I said, okay, no problem.
Put it in the air and
Minutes
Eli,
later,
what's up,
the
man?
cashier returned and informed Lauren that the police were on their way because the bill she used was a poorly made counterfeit. Furious, Lauren didn't wait a second.
I called him immediately and I swore at him. Okay, I said, you could have at least told me. How dare you play with my freedom?
Even though Kibby gave her a fake name, she shared his email address and a clear description of his heavily damaged vehicle with the police.
I told him, whatever you're making in your damn basement, you better clean it up right now because they are coming for your ass.
Unaware of what happened with Lauren, Abby jumped when Kibby slammed her door open in the bunker, screaming nonsense at the scared teenager. But like she did hundreds of times at this point, Abby kept her cool. She reached out and calmly asked him what was wrong. After 9 months in captivity, Abby
finishing
knew
up
Kibby
this
well.
fucking
She
run
learned how
here.
to act around him, how to prevent his outbursts,
At
and even
Wintertodt.
how to soothe him. Her strategy was twofold: listening and staying calm at all costs. No small feat under her captor's constant abuse and torture.
If I were going to write a textbook about how victims should deal with abductions, the first chapter would be about Abby.
Kibby quickly explained what happened before telling Abby to get out. As she stepped outside the room, the teenager realized something shocking. Behind the explosive rig door was the first room she had been held in. She had never actually left Kibby's bunker. When he made her move 4 months ago, he had just driven in circles for hours, only to bring her back in the same place, but in a different section of the bunker. Once inside his actual home, Kibby removed Abby's shock collar and handed her a black plastic bag.
He gave me back my clothes that I got kidnapped.
What's this one?
Said,
This
"We need to get you
what,
out
the
of here."
video?
One could think that Kibby would actually move her to another location this time, or even kill her and be done with it. But that's what's so unique about Abby's case. By treating her captor like a human being, she'd put him in a real dilemma. 9 months ago, he likely wouldn't have hesitated to get rid of her, but now, the man had grown attached to the young teenager in his own distorted way. This shift came from Abby's incredible resilience and ability to see the good in everyone, even
The
her
game
own
is RuneScape.
tormentor.
Video
Also
just some
humanized her captor.
fucking
She essentially played mind
video on the
games with
internet.
this guy and was able to gain his trust.
Somehow find a way of seeing the humanity in the person that was treating you so cruelly and use that as a survival technique.
As they got on
Yeah, the
road,
game's
she was
RuneScape,
still
old school
unsure of what he would
RuneScape.
do. Maybe drop her in another state or hand her over to someone else. But her heart started racing when she saw a sign along the road reading, "Conway ahead." Before long, Kibby stopped the car in the exact spot where he kidnapped her almost a year ago.
There were no cars coming either way. He said, get out. I slammed the door and he drove off. Just like that, that was it. I looked back on my freedom and it was something that I really wanted to experience again and I really longed for. I remember looking up and laughing, just being so happy. Like, oh my God, this actually happened. I'm a free person. I never thought it would happen to me, but I'm free. And I just walked home.
In a twist as unbelievable as it is ironic, Abby got to finish her 9-month-long walk home. She was even wearing the same boots that had brought her there in the first place.
I remember when I came up to my doorstep, I could hear my mom talking on the phone. I could hear her voice. I opened the door and I said, Mom? And I remember she said, Abby? And then I remember she ran out. It was almost like, it was a shock. Like I had this shudder and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. That was such a beautiful moment. I remember just the look on her face. I remember seeing her and she looked different. She really did. I could see stress, the months of stress in her face. And it kind of killed me a little bit, but I was just so relieved to see her.
But things were far from over for Abby.
Oh,
The
Rocky,
last
just
thing
wait.
Kibbe said before releasing her was that, since the civil case against him had been dropped, the police gave him back his guns. If she ever revealed his identity, she could expect him or one of his libertarian friends to come for her in retaliation. Willing to do anything to protect her family, Abby kept Kibbe's name a secret.
Her captor told her that he would kill police if they came to get him, that he would kill her family. He made all kinds of threats.
She says, I know the name, but I can't tell you because he's gonna come and kill us. He's everywhere. He knows I'm telling you this now. I was like, no. I said, he doesn't. And like, we're in a public place. She's like, yeah, he's gonna come and shoot us.
When this information came to light, the public's outrage was reignited, repeating the same drama surrounding Abby's letter from 7 months ago. Everyone criticized and blamed the survivor for her silence.
Was the child held prisoner?
Rocky, relax.
9 long months. Was that for real?
Even without Abby's involvement, Lauren Monday's deposition about the counterfeit money should have indirectly led police to the kidnapper. However, at the time, New Hampshire was dealing with a widespread counterfeit money operation tied to groups unrelated to Kibbe.
Right now, Claremont police are warning people to be on the lookout for counterfeit cash.
Is this a larger part of a bigger group of people? Is this just an isolated incident?
With her back against the wall, Abby had to make a choice. Thanks to her family's love and reassurance, she gathered her courage and made sure Kibbe never harmed anyone else by finally revealing his identity to the FBI. In cooperation with local police, the Bureau organized a large-scale raid of Kibbe's property.
I heard the radio communication say that he had a pistol in his waistband, and I really felt like the next communication was going to be we were going to hear that there were shots fired.
To the federal agent's surprise, but not the local police, Kibbe immediately surrendered.
Nate Kibbe behaved like Nate Kibbe always behaved. He was violent in situations where he had the upper hand. He was never physically confrontational with the police.
For the next 2.5 years, investigators in tow with Attorney General Jane Young built their case while Kibbe awaited judgment in jail, and the results spoke for themselves. There was enough evidence to charge the 34-year-old with 183 crimes. From kidnapping to hundreds of sexual assaults to the production of counterfeit money, the suspect had no choice but to accept a court-mandated plea deal for 7 of those charges, guaranteeing him a sentence of 45 to 90 years.
Well, initially, Nathaniel Kibbe faced 183 charges, but with a plea deal with the state, pled guilty to 7 of those charges. Now, Kibbe will spend 45 to 90 years behind prison bars.
What this investigation revealed is that every painstaking detail that the victim provided was in fact true, no doubt. Everything supported by evidence. Hundreds of pieces of evidence. Physical evidence, purchase records, statements of other individuals.
Every day, I'm just glad that she got away. She was one who got away. And it's not a cold case file of another innocent child.
Since Kibbe's sentencing, Abby has achieved many things, from finishing high school to becoming a hairdresser, a goal she had even before the kidnapping. She also became a proud mother and an executive producer on a film based on her case. However, her most profound victory came before all of that. On May 26, 2016, she finally took the stand in court and faced Kibbe on her own terms.
A dramatic day in a New Hampshire courtroom. A young woman face-to-face with a 34-year-old man under arrest and now charged with kidnapping her.
It seems like forever. 2 years have gone by, but I often think about Kibbe. What he did affects my life on a day-to-day basis. My name does not mean the same thing anymore that it did before October 9th. But I need to be safe, and so does my family. When you decided to point that gun at me, that was not my choice. It was not my choice to go to your house. It was not my choice for you to hit me. It was not my choice for you to threaten me. You did all that yourself.
Relax, bud.
I'm just telling you the
Take care in a
truth.
minute.
Because sometimes I feel like I wear this whole thing like a millstone around my ankle. Sometimes I still feel like I'm chained, and sometimes I don't feel like I'm completely free. There are certain aspects of my freedom that I can never get back. But in the same aspect, I want you to know that I appreciate my freedom because of you. And that I enjoy and appreciate life because of you. And that I never look at sunshine in the same way. Some people might call you a monster, but I've always looked at you as human. And I want you to know that even though life became a lot harder after that, I still forgive you.
1%, bro. That's all we need is the 1%. Come on. Oh, finally. We're out here. 29 rewards. Alright, Rocks. Let's go outside. I gotta take my dog out. Little guy needs to go out, you know? Fucking little guy needs to head out, you know? Okay. Let's go. Let's go, you big belly bastard. Outside, come on, you little bastard. Let's go. Come on. Going. Mm-mm-mm-mm. Turn on my rig, bud. My dude, 18-monther. It's crazy. Monther is crazy. Taking a small break at work. Hey, that's what's up. Not too much here, man. Just fucking relaxing, doing my thing, you know? Doing my thing, surviving, living life. Oh, excuse me. So that I've been grinding out streams every night, but might hop back on Classic today. I'm thinking Ghost of Tsushima. Ooh, that's a good game. I've never played it, but I've watched people play it, and that shit look mad fun, bro. Playing the hardest difficulty, I played halfway through the game on the second hardest one. Took a break for like a year, but I felt like it was too easy. Jesus Christ, that's fucking crazy. I mean, I suck at like those kind of games, you know, where it's all like timing and parrying and dodging and shit. Not good at it. No bueno. You have to get back into it. Yeah, that's fair. The only game I've ever been good at like that was like Star Wars Jedi Survivor, or like whatever the first one was. I can't even remember what it was called.
On Prime Crime.
My husband's deceased. There's been a tragedy at my home. He's stiff and he's wounded. He might have had a heart attack.
An unconventional relationship ends in tragedy.
He poured himself a drink, really heavy, and then he started spewing. Didn't realize how much rage was going on in there.
Leaving behind a broken family and a wife facing serious questions.
He would often say, everything will be okay as long as I hide the steak knives. Well, oh my God, he didn't hide the steak knives.
Hey there, everybody, I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we break down some of the most compelling and memorable true crime cases. Marriages at times can be pretty rocky, right? From those little tiffs to the serious arguments, that's normal. Yet the relationship in this story is quite different. It goes from a rather unique beginning to a deadly end.
911, you need police medical. I don't know. My husband's deceased. There's been a tragedy at my home.
It's around 9:30 in the morning on January 12, 2019, when 911 dispatchers receive a frantic call from a woman in Winter Park, Florida.
Why do you believe he's deceased? Because he's stiff and he's wounded. He might have had a heart attack. I don't know.
I fucking love Star Wars: The Force Unleashed on the Wii. Fucking phenomenal, bro. Honestly,
who says she discovered
honestly, the Star Wars Unleashed is like one of the best games ever made.
Michael Redlick dead on the floor of their home.
It was just a bizarre case. Initially, when she called 911, she said that her husband had succumbed to a heart attack.
But then she had a different story. She said that Michael stabbed himself to death. She was in fear of her life.
He was actually choking me and trying to suffocate me first. I actually went for the knife, and he was screaming, "What are you gonna do, stab me?" He grabbed it. And that's when he did it. He made a motion. He stabbed himself, and I ran into the bathroom. When I came out,
did you ever play Star Wars Outlaws? Almighty.
I tried to help him, I couldn't. Correct. Yes. I tried to hurt myself this morning. It doesn't look good for me.
In order to
I loved it.
how we got
Those
here,
are
we have to
the
take a step
Battlefront
back
games,
to
bro.
the
Oh my god.
unusual beginning of Danielle and
Battlefront
Michael's
games are
relationship.
legendary.
I first met Mike, I think it was 1996. He'd come to the golf course and say, I think I'm in love with this woman, Kathleen, but she's dying of cancer. I think I'm gonna marry her. You're gonna marry her? Yeah, the benefits that she has are terrible. She's gonna have better treatment, better care, and that's why he married Kathleen. I'm sure they were in love, but he was all about helping her out.
Upgraded PS Vita was an absolute.
Kathleen away,
Dude, I forgot about the PS.
providing
I forgot
for
all about the PS Vita,
Kathleen's
dude.
kids, Danielle and her younger brother.
Michael Redlick was an executive for various sports teams, so he had a prominent job, doing well, making good money.
She found him somewhat exciting. You know, he was 20 years her senior, certainly had more financial resources, and it sounds like he was able to take her out and do different things with her.
Somewhere down the road, the relationship started. He married his stepdaughter. We warned him against it. Like, what are you thinking? In a weird way, it's a love story that most people wouldn't approve of, but it became a love story, a real love story. Well, that's the
Married
biggest
his
mistake Mike made
stepdaughter.
in his life.
Fast forward 15 years.
What the fuck?
Michael is dead, and Danielle is taken to the hospital to be evaluated. Police pay her a visit to try and piece together what exactly occurred here.
We just kind of want to get some type of information as to what happened. If you're willing to talk to us, that'd be good.
I'm perfectly willing to say what happened.
At the hospital, Danielle was concerned about her kids and about herself. She was worried of what would happen to her and who would tell the kids that Michael was dead.
I'm just really concerned about my kids knowing that their dad's gone. Well, who tells them this? My husband's gone.
We're just going to tell them that their father passed away and that you're in the hospital under care. No details will be given out.
I can't believe this.
What struck me was there were some times that she shed some tears, but I thought that she was rather calm and cool and collected to be in that situation.
What are people being told?
We haven't talked to anybody. We wanted to talk to you first if you're willing to talk to us.
I mean, I'm definitely willing. I'm just afraid. Should I have legal representation? Is that no one's even telling me?
That's up to you.
This may seem odd, but it's the police that are interviewing you.
So I understand you say I'm not being held, but the doctors are evaluating my...
You're not being held.
What's wrong, baby?
But the hospital?
Correct.
You know, it seems like a normal question, but she did ask if I was free to leave. Am I under arrest, right? So she must have known that there was some suspicion.
Yet there is much more to Michael and Danielle's relationship. Accusations and allegations.
You want me to describe what happened?
I want you to tell me whatever you feel comfortable telling me.
Thursday, my husband was very belligerent and distraught.
Well, at first the relationship was fine, but then over time there were allegations of controlling behaviors and that he had a drinking problem.
He was following me around the house and I was trying not to engage. I locked myself in the bathroom. He broke the door open. He was scaring me, so I decided to leave. And he was drinking heavily.
I'm not a rocket scientist, but wait a minute. There's 8 empty bottles of wine in the garbage. Mike didn't like wine. So those bottles got emptied by somebody other than Mike.
We had some issues last year. He basically cheated on me, and it was a big, long, drawn-out thing. And I found a slew of emails of him carrying on with another woman, and it just crushed me.
Mike was trying to understand, and he must have been going to some meetings with Al-Anon, and along the way, he met a woman. They became friends. Friends. It was somebody that he could talk to about dealing with her. No infidelity at all on Mike's part. I'm convinced of that.
He found a
Yeah.
text from another man to me.
I'm not convinced, homie.
Really angered him.
What 50-year-old man just goes and meets a new woman for her friend? What man just go meets a new woman for a friend, period? Like, none of my friends do.
Social media messages, you know, it was kind of right in the middle of were these communications for a social nature or was she looking for employment? She alluded to the fact that she was looking to further her career. And it sounds like he was somewhat jealous that she also was interested in other men.
Thursday, I ended up leaving the home to avoid any kind of distress in front of the kids. My daughter, the two of them were yelling at each other, and I said, okay, that's it, we're leaving. So I took her with me to a friend's house. And my son wanted to stay. He was belligerent, but he wasn't being physically harmful to the kids.
That's where things began to go somewhat awry in the marriage. She complained that as a result, he was both physically and emotionally abusive. And unfortunately, we live in a society where domestic violence still occurs. And we're not so quick to disbelieve a woman who is smaller than her husband.
At his funeral,
fuck off.
Danielle delivered the eulogy and told everyone in the congregation that Mike was her best friend and talked about all the things that he had done for her and the kids. No way, if you listen to that eulogy, you could ever think that this guy would lay a hand on her.
Police need to get the full story of how Michael Redlick died. Coming up, can detectives figure out what actually happened between the couple?
I did not murder my husband. Please, I don't understand. This is a tragedy. I can't believe
Looking for clarity on where to invest?
What a time for an ad, yo. Jeez.
Everyone in the congregation at his funeral is looking at her delivering a eulogy, and they're all saying the same thing. Why isn't she behind bars?
It's January 2019, and 45-year-old Danielle
Rocket, you
Redlick
want
is
out?
being questioned after calling 911, saying her stepfather turned husband, 65-year-old Michael Redlick, died in their Winter Park, Florida home. After telling dispatchers several versions of what happened, investigators talked to Danielle at the hospital, where she says Michael was aggressive and intimidating.
He continued on his day Friday to work, and I continued my day. I got some snide texts from him during the day. We attended our son's football game together that evening, and it was after the football game where, once again, he poured himself a drink, and really heavy, and it just started from there. He started spewing. I didn't realize how much rage was going on in there.
She had previously filed a police report against Michael for domestic abuse. And because of that, it led credence to her claim later that she was in fear of her life and that Michael was at it again.
But Danielle starts to shut down.
I think that's about what I'm most comfortable talking about currently.
With Danielle not giving police much to go on, days later they return to the Redlicks' home, this time with a warrant in hand.
Can you get the kids away, Dad? Please.
Yes.
Just get the kids.
Danielle, I just want to talk to you, okay? Right now you're not under arrest, but we just secured you for our safety. We do have a search warrant for your house, and I also have a search warrant.
Be like, fuck you if I'm not under
While the
arrest.
detective collects the DNA
Let's go,
sample,
bud.
Danielle
Pat me
seems
down and then
shocked
cuff
to
me.
learn what investigators may be thinking.
Violating my right here.
2 buccal swabs, saliva standards from Danielle Justine Redlick, which is believed to be evidence relevant to proving that a felony crime has been committed. Death investigation, second-degree murder are located in the person.
You're saying the saliva, when there was resuscitation done, that's second-degree murder?
No, I'm collecting saliva standards from you
Because of the resuscitation?
because of other evidence that we have collected.
She also said that she tried to save Michael's life, giving him CPR, and passed out because of her Herculean efforts.
She tried CPR and couldn't find her phone to call 911. I think that's somebody dancing and just changing the story as much as she could.
So you're saying that once this DNA is confirmed as mine, I'm being charged with second-degree murder? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm collecting this to be tested. From what we collected from the house, we need to be able to differentiate your DNA from your husband's DNA.
That's when Danielle starts getting defiant.
What the heck are you guys looking for? I don't understand this. Tell you what freaking happened. I don't understand. What are you looking for? Can you tell me what they're looking for? I might be able to help. Is that a no?
We also have a search warrant to collect any other evidence that we think is necessary.
I'm trying to charge me with I did not murder my husband. Please, I don't understand this jargon.
From what I understand, you live directly across the street from the Redlicks.
Correct.
Little did Danielle know there were others who for a long time noticed issues between her and Michael, issues that become critical in understanding the complexity of this case.
The whole neighborhood knows that they fought, verbally at least, and physically out in front of the house.
Police speak with the Redlicks' neighbors and learn even more about the tumultuous relationship.
We are very aware of the bickering and fighting and that type of thing. Most of the time it was screaming at one another, but primarily it was her screaming at him.
These are two people that were not getting along. The relationship started off in a very strange manner, and they probably should have never been together in the first place.
When you hear them fighting outside, did you ever hear the nature of what they were arguing about, or just kind of?
I don't even know why I just lit that. I'm fucking.
I think a couple times she screamed, "Get out of here," and that type of thing, but not to the extent of where the issue was.
He knew she represented not only a danger to him, but to herself. And I think when you mix alcohol and anger management, she had a couple altercations with the law, so my guess is he was just trying to keep her in check.
I didn't see any altercation with hitting, but my wife has also on occasion. Her hitting him, I don't know whether he's hit her or whatever the scenario is from that standpoint.
So she and argued plenty of times.
Has it been verbal or physical?
But it wasn't on his part.
So she's initiated it or she's been yelling? Okay. When it's physical, what have you seen?
Her slapping him around in the face.
Some of us saw some dangers there. If you would have asked me 6 years ago, did I have any friends whose spouse were capable of killing them, I'd say only one, and that would be Danielle.
How would you describe Michael?
He always seemed very laid back. I never saw any kind of aggression or anything.
And how would you describe Danielle?
Volatile. But I don't know what happened behind closed doors.
Then detectives learn there's been run-ins with the Redlicks in the past, including the year earlier when Michael actually called 911 on Danielle.
911, do you need police, fire, medical?
We need a car here. There's a woman that's a danger to herself and to others right now.
A gentleman that's a danger to us.
My sense on calling 911 was to show her that, look, I'm not going to abuse you. I'm not going to hit you, but I've had it.
You better go in your room. Please, Dan. Please, go in your room. Will you stop? Oh, all right. I will call you back. I'll call you back in 5 minutes.
Sir, what is going on there? Hello?
You can see in a domestic situation where someone is looking at their wife acting crazily that they would call police, and because they didn't know what her intentions were, that they wouldn't ask police to come over right away and said he would call them back, but he never did.
This was not Danielle's first brush with the law. She actually was previously charged with getting into an altercation with a couple of deputies. She was even accused of biting one of the deputies. She received probation.
It's still not clear, though, what truly happened in the Redlicks' home that January night when Michael died. But up next, investigators speak with someone else who maybe can provide some answers.
She was like, when Dad comes home, he's angry with me right now, so if you sense tension, I'm just warning you, me and Dad aren't on good terms right now.
We started struggling about 5 years or so ago. He started getting some medical problems and ED, nothing like the male ego. Now we're this. It's been in total shock.
It's January 20.
It sounds like my Aunt Mary, and she's a fucking cunt, so I can only imagine this woman is too.
A woman on probation, as they think she stabbed her husband, Michael Redlick, to death, all amid a heated argument in the couple's Winter Park, Florida home. Over the 15-year marriage, this relationship has been rocky for the stepdaughter-turned-wife who says Michael, 20 years her senior, physically and verbally abused her. Police need to determine if there's any truth to what Danielle is saying, so they speak with the Redlick's son, then 11-year-old Sawyer, to get a better picture of what their family life was like and what may have gone down the night Michael died.
How did you get to your friend's house yesterday?
I had a football game last night and I had a sleepover with him.
Was he supposed to coach this morning at your football? And he just didn't show up?
Yeah, no one showed up.
Mike was a Little League coach, and the night of the occurrence, there was a flag football game.
How was your parents' relationship that night?
I think there was some tension between them. I don't know what, but I could see the anger.
Who appeared angry?
My dad.
You know, if anybody was toxic in a relationship, it was Danielle. Go back and look at all the things before he came back into the house that night. What did she do to him as he was getting out of the car? She threw eggs at the car. She egged her husband. This is not a sane woman.
Have they ever gotten into arguments that you actually saw them physically fighting?
Yes. They are pushing each other.
Have you ever seen anything more than just pushing between the two of them?
Scratching.
Okay, who would scratch who?
I guess my mom and my dad would push away.
Investigators then learn even more about Michael and Danielle's troubling marriage from their daughter, 15-year-old Jaden.
My parents used to be separated. They're obviously not divorced, but as like a family, we've been through a lot this past year. I know they were kind of in a heated argument this week about something.
Jaden's interview with the police was what I would expect, basically that her parents did not get along.
My dad moved out in April of last year, and he moved back in I think late October. They've always had like an off and on relationship for like I think the past 5 or 6 years.
It's interesting for someone so young that's getting information from both parties. Clearly the father communicated to her that he didn't necessarily get along with his mother, and the mother was communicating to her that she didn't necessarily get along with her father. So she was kind of stuck in the middle.
Last year, my dad met this woman, and my parents were separated at that time, and that was when they were saying, okay, we're gonna get a divorce. And my mom like was really hurt by that.
If you know the people close to both of them, Mike Redlick was not the kind of guy that was gonna be cheating on his wife. No way.
Roll the one.
She had like an app on her phone, not a dating app. She showed me the app. It was for like work or something.
She had messages where some gentleman mentioned that he found her attractive and he liked her photo.
Some random guy was like flirting with her or something, but she didn't respond, and my dad saw that, and I think that's what caused like an argument. I have a really close relationship.
Oh, almighty, you and me, baby.
She told me that she didn't have anything going on with this guy.
Obviously, this was a source of tension between her and her husband. At some point, she even deleted messages off of her phone. These messages certainly did not help her.
You had mentioned they had fights in the past. Has anything been physical?
At points, yeah.
When's the last time you saw them get into a physical confrontation?
Not for a while. Sometime last year.
Jaden blamed her mom for being the instigator, that if there was any violence between them, it was her mother, Danielle, who instigated it.
In the times in the past that they've had this
Oh,
physical
Shiny boy?
confrontation that you've observed, who would be the more aggressive one to actually physically touch you?
My mom. I've never seen him hurt my mom, like physically.
It's rare for a daughter to point the finger at her mother for being the violent one, but that's what happened here.
The one time that I saw like a mark on my dad's face was because they were arguing and my mom had a ring on.
Has he ever hit her or left any marks on her?
I think so. I remember just my mom saying my dad pushed her.
Do you think the push was in self-defense because she was coming at him, or push because he was upset at her?
Maybe both.
You had a verbal and physical abuse being alleged, you had cheating being alleged, so you had all this in a combustible mix that led to the tragedy that ensued.
He said to me on several occasions, everything will be okay as long as I hide the steak knives. I was driving from Charlotte up to Cleveland, got a call from a good friend of mine that let me know what happened. They said he was found dead. I was in shock.
Let's go, almighty.
At the same time, I wasn't surprised. Oh my God.
Shiny
He
boy.
hid the steak knives.
Detectives put two and two together, and they begin to realize that perhaps Danielle's story that Michael stabbed himself doesn't quite add up. Maybe Danielle was the aggressor. They begin to build a case against her, starting with something police noticed at the very start of this whole investigation.
Michael was stabbed once in the shoulder. It was originally a bloody crime scene, but when investigators walked into the house, they smelled disinfectant, bleach.
It was clear that the husband had bled out. There was evidence that she even attempted to clean up. By the time they arrived, and the fact that the wounds had dried, it led the investigators to believe that this had taken place hours prior to her calling 911.
And let's go back to that 911 phone
Well,
call
she's
that Danielle
fucked.
made after the stabbing. There was one important detail that caught investigators' attention.
Did you just find him?
No, actually, it happened last night.
Did you see him last night? Was he okay, or was...
He was not okay last night. We had altercation.
What is interesting, of course, is that she waited 11 hours to call the police after what was ultimately discovered to be an altercation between the two.
Is there a reason why you didn't call last night?
I'm on probation, and I was really afraid, and I didn't think anybody would believe me.
Her initial story was that he killed himself. Okay, so if your husband kills himself, why wouldn't you call 911 right away? Why would you tamper with evidence? Why wouldn't you call EMS and see what you could do to save him?
About a week after the stabbing, Danielle is arrested for violating her probation. And that's when police press her even further on Michael's death.
You had indicated that you have a lawyer, but again, we want to give you the opportunity to tell your side of the story. It's up to you if you want to talk to us more.
For what? The other stuff?
Yes.
Cause I don't give a fuck.
But with Danielle Redlick not giving in to questioning, it's the evidence that starts doing the talking.
Detectives focus on the 11 hours, where Danielle said that she was hiding in the bathroom because she was in fear of her life. Meanwhile, in those 11 hours, she was cleaning up the crime scene. Plus, she was surfing the web on a dating site, looking to meet new men while he's bleeding to death. That's the kind of stuff that makes headlines and will stick in a juror's mind to show that someone has a cold and depraved heart.
She did all types of odd behavior. But I just want to point out that it's not absolutely dispositive because we all react differently. Taking of a human life is one of the most traumatic events that one can engage in. And it's very difficult to know what normal behavior is. So it's kind of a mixed bag here.
About a month after Michael Redlick's death, Danielle is officially arrested and charged with murder and tampering with evidence.
Danielle was charged with second-degree murder, which doesn't require premeditation. It could just be that she killed someone with a depraved mind, but didn't necessarily plan it in advance.
It's then, when Danielle is locked up in jail, that she does something which
I feel as
raises
though she'd
even
been
more
planning that
suspicion.
shit for a while.
I told you that I had the plea offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was basically they dropped the charge to manslaughter 10 years. According to, my lawyers, it was a good offer, but then today it seems like they had bad news. They're like, well, no, the plea's not, he doesn't want to negotiate the plea now, and now he wishes he didn't give it to you.
Most of us thought, this is an airtight case, and she's going to be found guilty.
Yeah.
If anything, maybe they let her plead out to a lesser degree. That offer was on the table.
Danielle made the decision to decline the manslaughter deal, where she would have served 10 years in prison.
There's some evidence they keep getting, but it's just stuff they took out of his desk when he was writing down stuff about when I had filed for divorce. Michael was so angry, he was keeping a log of stuff like, he was just being vindictive, like, oh, today Danielle did this. And it's like, all this stuff this did to me, I better not share too much, but there's something really bad about him that he did when he was younger. They're trying to keep all that out.
She obviously thought she could convince a jury that she believed she was in fear of her life. She could use Michael's past against him.
Then he got all these hearsay stuff from people they were talking, he was talking to at work that don't even know me. Oh, well, Danielle had problems. Meanwhile, this son of a is drinking his ass off, smacking me around, smacking the kids around too, going at it with me, Well, unfortunately, a lot of people aren't stepping forward because they didn't see anything. No one sees the abuse. I was mentally abused, like psychologically. I'm not kidding you. Sexually,
She doesn't even know the ones she can think of.
Boy, he was a mastermind.
Keep in mind that even when one pleads self-defense, they are not claiming that they did not kill someone. They are merely saying, I am not criminally liable because I had to kill this person in order to save my life.
They had another stupid charge in there for tampering because there was so much blood when I was trying to, anyway, without saying a lot, I was slipping on it, so I used a towel. So they're saying, that kind of thing could be tampering. So that's kind of BS. The max for that is 5 years alone.
She was also charged with tampering When someone dies, the police have to conduct an investigation. So it's a crime to impede that investigation and tamper with the crime scene.
When you walk into a crime scene, you smell bleach, generally that's tampering with the evidence. And so that's the one that all along.
As if
we
you were
knew
just
she
doing
would
the
be convicted
dishes.
of. The bigger question is, would they get her for murder?
That's the
Or
question.
the person that died
Would a
just
jury
doing the
believe
dishes.
Danielle Redlick murdered her husband?
They did a hell of a job banging up some evidence.
But-
A lot of it's hearsay. A neighbor saw me hit him on the outside one time. If I go to trial, I could definitely lose, or I could win.
When we return, Danielle Redlick heads to trial.
I could definitely lose, or I could definitely win. She's a bright
To
one.
put a mother and 4 kids in jail after her husband died, it's fabulous. It's really great karma for you guys. I mean, I know you're doing your job, but at the same time, I haven't had no chance for defense or anything.
In June 2022, prosecutors are set to bring Danielle Redlick's second-degree murder and tampering with evidence case before a jury for the death of her stepfather-turned-husband, Michael Redlick. Investigators believe Danielle stabbed him after their 15-year marriage turned to arguments and alleged abuse. Up until now, not much is clear of what actually went on in their suburban home the day of Michael's death, but it was at trial where new details came to light.
That defendant plunged a knife into the shoulder of Michael Redlick, which would cause him to bleed to death. The home that she is standing in looks like something from a horror movie.
The prosecution's
horror
strongest evidence at
movie.
trial was the argument that manipulating the crime scene, hiding the crime, evidences a guilty mind.
This defendant did everything she could to avoid responsibility for her actions. The evidence will show that she engages in a significant but failed attempt to clean up the scene.
Danielle's alibi never made any sense. She only claimed self-defense after she first said that Michael had a heart attack or that Michael stabbed himself, which is really bizarre.
Based on all the information that you had from the 911 call, your conversation with Miss Redlick, did you believe her to be claiming that Mr. Redlick basically brought about his own death?
Yes.
Did the autopsy results as shared to you by the medical examiner give you reason to believe that that was not true?
Yes.
Danielle kept changing her story. How can you dispute the fact that you had someone who claimed to be a victim of domestic violence, who claimed to be acting in self-defense, who then didn't claim self-defense when she spoke to law enforcement?
Did you actually locate some evidence?
Yes, I did. There was towels that were piled up next to the stair. There was a mop that had blood on it and a bucket full of like pink liquid by the stairs. There was also knives. There was a knife in the doorway, knives in the kitchen sink.
I think the prosecution relied more on the physical evidence of her manipulation of the crime scene than anything else.
Prosecutors also tried to show evidence of problems in the marriage. An email from months before the stabbing from Danielle to Michael was particularly chilling.
I know I'm bitter at times, I admit, but you have a lot of nerve as well. Although my words may be cutting, they are only sounds, a dull knife compared to the sharp, disloyal, deceiving, phony, and never
This bitch has got something for like some fascination with knives.
Of course, someone would be messed up, traumatized, and may act out.
She used a large knife to stab Michael to death, who then slowly bled out for the next 11 hours. It looked like someone who wanted Michael dead and was trying to hide her tracks.
Then it comes time for the defense to show jurors that Danielle killed Michael in self-defense.
Everybody thought it would be a layup, but the one thing they were worried about was how people would portray Mike. If I'm the defense attorney, I'm going to paint this story about this guy that married his stepdaughter, right? We're going to make him look like a predator that was abusive.
January 11th, 2019, someone was very, very angry. This someone started to physically attack their spouse. They had rage. They were choking their spouse, smothering their spouse. That
Look at this
someone
goofball
was
wearing the
Michael
mask.
Redlick. And Danielle Redlick had no choice but to
Can
defend
never take that
herself
bitch
because she
serious.
was afraid she was going to die.
The other argument for self-defense is that she stabbed Michael in the shoulder. It wasn't a kill shot that you would normally think of as an attempt to murder someone would be in the heart.
Yes, Danielle Redlick did stab Michael Redlick. Danielle Redlick knew and recognized that the danger that she was facing that night was different than the other incidents of abuse that had happened throughout their marriage.
You can see why jurors could buy the story that she acted in self-defense because she had a prior complaint of domestic violence against Michael.
At one point during the trial, Danielle Redlick takes the stand herself, telling the jury her version of events the night Michael died.
Ms. Redlick, on January 11th, 2019, did you stab your husband?
I did. Yes.
She got to take the stand in her own defense, and there was no one there to defend Michael because Michael's dead.
He was suffocating me. I couldn't breathe, and he had me pinned down. I was scared, and I was just in fear for my life. I thought he snapped, and I could die.
Did you have any choice but to use a weapon to get away?
No.
She is painting a story that isn't true. She's using her manipulation to try to convince the jury that she's the victim.
I walked through the kitchen, and that's when he comes up behind me and grabs me. I just trip up on my feet, and I fall to the ground. At that point, I grab the center island, and I reach up to pull myself up to face him. So he grabs me here and slams me down onto the center island counter.
There were times we say, Mike, now you've never hit her when she starts going off the wall. His response was, I just put my hands up for self-defense.
He called me a and he was holding my head
Put my hands
down
up.
on the counter. So I'm just pinned up against the counter like this, and he's straddling my body here and has me pinned. I've got a free arm here, and the drawer in front of me is the only thing I can do. So I use my free arm to push open the drawer ahead of me.
I think he was just trying to hold her back, talk her down off the ledge, and she got carried away and she killed him.
Pulled the knife out, he released my head. He says, what, are you gonna stab me? And I take the knife and I position it and face it toward him. He immediately just goes for my chin and pushes me back, and I stabbed him at that point.
Prior to stabbing him with a knife, are you able to remove yourself?
No,
Are you able to get out without using a weapon?
no, I was trying
What are you trying to do?
to get away from him.
Why? If you don't do that, what is your belief that will happen?
That he might smother me to death.
Danielle was the best witness for the defense. She advocated for herself.
But prosecutors still needed some questions answered.
A life without Michael Redlick was a life that you were looking forward to living.
Well, a life at peace with Michael Redlick.
You wanted a life beyond Michael, correct?
Yes, at that point, yes.
If a defendant can stand up against cross-examination, I think it can really hurt the prosecution's case.
So you stood in that home with the power to call for help, and you let your husband bleed to death on that floor.
He had already bled to death. I was wondering if I could recover him or something.
Which one is it? Is he dead, or you think it's possible to
Well,
save him?
if he could be recovered, something would have to be done immediately. And so, yes, I thought perhaps I should do that.
So in these fleeting moments, you think Mr. Redlick can be saved, you choose not to save him.
I wouldn't put it that way, no.
When someone waits 11 hours to call 911, she was no longer in fear of her safety when he was lying on the floor bleeding to death. And yet, she let him die while she was surfing the web looking for dates.
Standing there, having mopped up all that blood, taking all these towels and soaked them through with Michael's blood, you thought that it was possible he had died of a heart attack.
Thought there was a possibility.
You did not believe that your husband had a heart attack, Ms. Redlick.
Actually, I did. Well, I was hoping, too.
We're hoping.
Not in the morbid sense that I wanted him dead, but
If he had a heart attack, you wouldn't have been responsible for his death.
yes, to an extent.
Juries, I think, are rather sophisticated. And I think that she really helped herself by getting on the stand because it provided her with an opportunity to tell her story and to talk about the tumultuous relationship and to explain why she took all the actions that she did.
My understanding is that you have reached a verdict. Is that correct? Yes.
Once the case was finally handed over to the jury, it took them just 4 hours of deliberating to come back with a major decision.
Guilty,
Verdict as to count
bitch.
1, we the jury find the defendant not guilty.
What?
Verdict as to count 2, we the jury find the defendant guilty of tampering with physical evidence.
I was sad. In my opinion, justice wasn't served, and I couldn't believe she got
That's
away
wild.
with it.
You have to respect jury decisions. These are 12 men and women that give up their time to do their civic duty. And I'm not in the habit of questioning a jury's decision. It's a very interesting decision. It's very interesting that all these things can occur and someone can clean up a crime scene after killing another person and be acquitted of murder. It's not something that we see often at all.
Are these jurors
Danielle
intelligent?
Redlick dodges
Like,
a
what the
conviction
fuck?
of second-degree murder, but is sentenced to almost a year in jail for tampering with evidence with credit for time served.
How does that even make
The
sense?
jury decided not necessarily she was innocent, but the jury decided that they didn't have enough evidence that she was a murderer beyond any reasonable doubt. So in the end, she bet on herself and she won.
Mike made one mistake. Wasn't being a good father, wasn't being a good husband, wasn't being good to Danielle's mother. He married his stepdaughter. Should have never have done it. If we could go back in time and talk him out of it, I wish we had that opportunity.
Bro,
With
like,
her
what
jail
the
sentence
fuck?
completed, Danielle Redlick is released from custody.
Dude, that's the dumbest
12
shit I
months
think I
probation.
might have ever seen in my life.
My folk
That's crazy, bro. So she tampers with evidence, but she doesn't kill him. Like, what? How does... what? How does that even... Like, how does that even, like, make sense? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't even fucking logically make sense. What the fuck?
Prime crime.
I ran outside
The
and called the
fuck?
police, and our nightmare started.
A teen girl vanishes in the night.
All you're focused on is finding your daughter.
Oh, what the fuck is
You
this?
just want to find your kid.
And evil may be right around the corner.
You just wish that someone had
She's like
recognized that they had a ticking time bomb.
Not only that, but she waits 12 hours to call the police. Like, what were you doing? Were you thinking you could save him? Yeah, well, what could you do that the police couldn't? Maybe save him? Like, what the fuck?
Hi there, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we break down the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. We cover some truly heinous acts here on the show, and our next story is really no different. But what makes this one especially chilling is the who and the why.
It was a very unusual day for us because Stacy and I, as most parents, were typically up early. We were sworn to stay into our room because Tristan and Sophia were going to make breakfast for Stacy for Mother's Day.
Mother's Day 2021, St. John's, Florida. What should be a happy time of celebration for the Bailey family becomes a day of
He wasn't
terror.
breathing
I walked
anymore.
out, and
Before she
Sophia
tried to
was
help him.
making breakfast by herself, and I was like, "Where's Tristan?" And she's
True,
like, "She's
bro.
still sleeping." And then my
True.
son came downstairs. I asked him to go upstairs and to wake up Tristan for breakfast.
That's true.
He came back. Then he was like, "Mom, listen, I know I'm blind, but like, I didn't see her up there." And then it instantaneously hit me. Sheer panic.
On Saturday, Tristan had a normal family day. She went to dinner with her family. She visited one of her sisters that night. Unbeknownst to the family, she had sort of made some loose plans to hang out with friends later that night.
But 13-year-old Tristan Bailey never came home.
I ran upstairs and went to her room and she wasn't there. I went to the bathroom. I went to our TV room upstairs. She wasn't there.
TV room.
Everyone just started running to every single room.
I've seen this one before. Rip.
She came home.
I haven't
not
seen
knowing
this,
that
though.
there were two killers waiting in her house for her.
It's pretty diabolical.
911, what is your emergency?
My friend, Teresa Sievers, she's a doctor, and she's dead on the floor.
Hi, I'm Dr. Teresa Sievers.
You are insane. See, this is why I'm single.
going to be
Yeah, I hear
bringing
you, bro.
different modalities of
I'm never.
Dr. Sievers had a very strong personality.
I never go
A lot of
on
people
and
found
get in
her
another
polarizing.
relationship.
They
Bitches
loved
are
her, they
crazy
did.
as
I
fuck.
want to enjoy my life like it is now. This was almost the perfect crime.
And she just said, I know what happened.
Then how'd you kill her? And he made a stupid little chuckle that he does and then said with a...
One question. No one's answered. Why? Why? Why is Teresa Sievers dead?
Pure and simple, a tale of murder and salaciousness.
You see that, paradise isn't paradise.
Rocky.
And maybe these pieces of the puzzle are starting to add up.
I don't think I've seen this before.
How to get out of that situation.
And I grabbed the gun.
Trying to find the first place to put a body.
No, sir.
The only thing they could do was kill him.
You want to say anything? We, the jury, need to find the defendant.
Ding 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 ding
I'm Dr. Teresa Sievers.
She was well liked as a doctor. She had a holistic physician's practice.
I don't know about you, but I'm not ready for postmortem. I want to enjoy my life like it is now.
I think everyone that speaks of her, from including her family, talked about her being a dynamo.
Are you ready to drop dead? I'm not.
But at the age of 46, Dr. Teresa Sievers was found dead in the kitchen of her home in Bonita Springs, Florida, brutally murdered.
I mean, this was a violent crime that occurred in the midst of an area that didn't see violent crime and on a street that didn't see violent crime. And people were upset. People were worried.
This doctor had touched many lives and tried to help different people. So I started to get calls from all over. My son goes to that doc. My daughter-in-law goes to that doc. Wow, what a wonderful woman.
She was last seen alive at the Fort Myers, Florida airport the night before.
Because we were able to observe her in the airport on surveillance video, we ended up learning that Dr. Sievers was returning home from a family gathering for her mother's birthday from Connecticut.
Her husband, Mark, and two daughters, Josephine and Carmela, stayed behind.
And Mom came home because Dr. Sievers was the primary breadwinner and she had a practice to run.
But the next day, Dr. Sievers failed to show up at her doctor's office.
The employees at her job started texting her husband, Mark Sievers, saying, hey, Dr. Sievers isn't here.
So her husband called a next-door neighbor, Dr. Mark Petritas, to check on her.
Hey, Mark. This is Mark. Teresa's not at work yet. And the office is calling and texting, and we can't get through to Teresa. Maybe she's just sound asleep. It's just not like her. In all the years I've known her to be a half hour late for work.
Dr. Mark Petritas was the first one who found her.
911, what is your emergency?
I'm at a friend's house. He's out of town, and I came here to check on his wife, and she's dead on the floor.
Oh, sir, hold on,
Yeah.
stay on the line.
Yes.
Okay. You're doing very well.
And she's bashed in the back of the head. And she's cold. She's dead cold.
It appeared that nothing had been taken. Did not appear that the house had been ransacked. There was nothing that indicated what the motive might be for what was a very vicious crime.
On my initial observations that she has sustained significant head trauma.
No shit.
Blunt force in nature. And there was a large pool of blood. And she was a smaller female. You could tell that it was not something that happened quickly.
The case was assigned to Lee County Sheriff's detectives Mike Downs and David Levitt.
There's no obvious smoking gun, for lack of a better choice of words.
Pretty much everybody's a suspect at that point. Who does her nails, who does her hair, who cuts the lawn, do they have a house cleaner, have they had any issues with anybody, does she get along with everybody at work? But nothing really seemed to pan out. We did later find out that she also had a very strong personality, which can rub people the wrong way.
It's not wrong, but it's not enough.
There was also speculation that Dr. Sievers had been targeted because of her practice as a holistic doctor.
Why aren't we doing this kind of medicine for our body? You can have preventive medicine, but it's not the kind of medicine you typically get at your doctor's office.
There was a group of people identify themselves as web sleuths, and they took a very big interest in this case because throughout the country, in at least 2 to possibly 3 other states at that time, there were some doctors that also practiced holistic medicine as well as internal medicine that died. And the theory was that they were all murdered and that we had to look at because, like Mike said, right now, it's everybody and their brother.
The theory of it was that there were certain holistic doctors who were being murdered because they had maybe a cure for cancer or had something that the government or some kind of shadowy group didn't want them to talk about. But that turned out to not to be the case.
Just for the record, state your name one more time for me.
Mark Sievers. And to be thorough,
Oh, I think I
the
remember
detectives
this one.
did conduct an interview with Teresa's husband, Mark, once he
This
returned
fucking
from
guy, he's a
Connecticut.
blubbering idiot.
Anytime there is a brutal murder of a spouse, one tends to look or at least glance at the other spouse. But in this case, the spouse was thousands of miles away in Connecticut at the time that the crime was committed with an alibi that was absolutely airtight.
I guess I feel pathetic, but at the same time, there's so much going on. But it's hard. I feel that I could stop this from happening. How do I get over that feeling?
It's gonna take time, it really will.
Can you tell me when she died? I need to know if she tortured you. What happened to her?
We can't tell this stage. We're still working on that.
Yeah, but she had so much to offer the world. She was really, everyone says this about their wife. That should have been me. I should have been home.
Everyone kept describing Mark as her rock, and she was his rock. Have you ever cheated on your wife?
I've never cheated on her, and she's never cheated on me.
Have you ever had anyone have an unhealthy obsession with either you or your wife or your kids or anything?
I absolutely can't think of anybody that would have been fit with that at all.
The detectives ended the interview so Mark Sievers could plan Teresa's funeral and grieve with their 2 daughters.
Yeah.
I wonder why they always do it on the day of their funeral.
Was befitting somebody of her stature. Here's this lady that really
interesting.
helped everybody, and now she's gone, and they mourned that fact.
But still, not a single clue about who had been waiting for Teresa that Sunday night as she pulled into her garage after telling her husband she was home and she was safe.
How had anyone gone into this crime scene, committed this horrific crime, and left absolutely no trace evidence? This was almost the perfect crime.
Until a late-night phone call would lead detectives to a small town in Missouri.
And we catch a break. We get a tip.
And she just said, I know what happened.
The call that would be the turning point in the case came into the Lee County Sheriff's Office late at night, some 2 weeks after the murder of Dr. Teresa Sievers.
Thank God. I thought, praise God. Seriously.
The tip came from a family friend of a man in a small town in Missouri, Hillsboro, Missouri. A man by the name of Curtis Wayne Wright, a 5-time convicted felon.
Sure enough, the more we dug, the more evidence started to pile up for us, thankfully.
And soon the detectives were on the trail of a second career criminal who was a close friend of Curtis Wayne Wright, a man by the name of Jimmy Ray Rogers.
Jimmy Ray Rogers liked to call himself the Hammer. It was on his Facebook. He liked to refer to himself as the Hammer.
Both men, Jimmy Ray Rogers and Curtis Wainwright were now very much persons of interest, but they both had denied being in Florida at the time of the murder.
And Curtis Wright told us that during the weekend of the murder, first he told us he was homesick in bed and never left his trailer. And then at one point he said, well, I was working on a car all weekend.
And Jimmy was beside himself. He barely talked to us, and then just let us know he just doesn't like cops, so I'm not going to talk to you. I didn't go to Florida, and I don't talk to Wayne. He's a nerd. Oh, okay. See you later, Jimmy.
But even with the tip and the detective's gut feelings, there still wasn't anywhere near enough to arrest them, and the detectives returned to Florida deflated.
We had a lot of digital evidence that we found that we knew we had to process and try and piece it together. Most notably, when we did the initial warrant on the Curtis Wainwright residence, there was a vehicle in the driveway, and we found a GPS in the center console. So we were hoping, let's just hope he entered addresses in here, let's hope it tracked his movement. And at first, we're deflated again because they're telling us this information is deleted and we can't interpret the code. So they spent a significant amount of time, hundreds and hundreds of man hours, trying to figure out this code to recover this deleted data.
And bingo.
They were able to establish a route from Curtis Wainwright's residence in Hillsborough, Missouri, and he makes a route there to go to Jimmy Rogers' residence in Cadet, Missouri. We went from 0 to 60 in a very short amount of time.
And then 1,104 miles south along Interstate 75, off the exit to Bonita Springs, and then right to Jarvis Road, the home of Dr. Teresa Sievers.
I think it was an aha moment, and I think at that moment there is the, wait a minute, we have people saying we're not here, and they are.
Retrieving that address, which would have been deleted just hours or days later, and placing the killers in the area of our victim was a critical piece of this puzzle.
And the GPS data showed their every movement on the way south.
One of the significant locations was a Walmart actually right across the street from the sheriff's office here, where we're able to capture what we believe and what is evidently Curtis Wainwright and Jimmy Ray Rogers walking into Walmart, buying a number of suspicious items, lockpick set, garbage bags, cleaning items, things like that. So now we know they're down here. We could see them clear as day on the video.
On the day Dr. Sievers returned home. We couldn't even believe it. The only thing we can think of is that they never thought we'd ever come up there because it's over 1,000 miles away, that they never would put two and two together.
And when the detectives returned to Missouri and went to question the Hammer's girlfriend, Taylor Showmaker, they hit even more pay dirt.
And she started crying, and she just said, I know what happened.
And I told him that I knew that he had something to do with it.
Okay.
And then he started asking me questions like, what I know about it. And I'm like, well, I know you went down there to kill somebody. And then he said, yeah. I said, did you shoot her? And he said, no. And I said, then how'd you kill her? And he made a stupid little chuckle that he does and then said, with a hammer.
You said with a hammer?
Yeah.
Her man had confessed to her while lying in bed.
It's huge because he actually confessed. Jimmy Ray Rogers confessed to the murder and specifically said that they used a hammer, which is consistent with the physical evidence that we recovered from the scene.
And then Taylor Showmaker took Detective Lebed to the area where she had helped her boyfriend, the Hammer, dispose of some of the evidence, including a blue jumpsuit he said he wore during the murder.
Case number 15-268513. Time now is currently 6:38 p.m. on Tuesday, August 25th, 2015. All right, Mission Leader, can you just walk me over to where you've identified the overalls?
And then she goes, there it is.
What's going
right
on,
there.
everybody?
And
Hope
sure
you guys are all
enough,
doing amazing.
we get out, we walk up to it, and it's a blue jumpsuit sitting on the side of the road.
How did we come to find these items today?
Bathroom out the window.
Okay, and what was the reason for throwing these out the window?
Because he murdered somebody.
Who's he?
Jimmy Rogers.
They had their evidence. They had their killers. But the investigation was far from over. Curtis Wainwright now tells the authorities he has information they will want if he can make a deal with them.
So as difficult as it was to us a decision that had to be made to let Wright plead to second-degree murder and receive a sentence of 25 years, provided he testified truthfully.
Wright's information involved his best friend in high school, back in Missouri, Mark Sievers, Teresa Sievers' husband. And now it was turning into a case of murder for hire.
Just breathe. Slow breathing. Until we get oxygen and makes you feel better. Through the nose. Thank you. There you go. See?
Even before his best friend in Missouri had implicated Mark Sievers in the murder of his wife Teresa, the detectives were already suspicious of Sievers, especially after a second round of questioning.
We've met many people through our investigations that have lost a loved one, and he seemed fake.
When detectives would leave the interrogation room, they had a sense Sievers was playing to the cameras.
I know you put this bastard in jail. Okay, she got hit coming in the house.
I saw a lot of simulated behavior. It didn't feel real.
How could you have been hit?
It was so much of a, what would appear to be so much of a show.
Now, talking about your relationship, have you guys been contemplating any kind of separation or divorce? Has there been any marital problems?
The detectives would later learn from friends and family the couple indeed had both marital and financial problems.
What are some of the biggest motives for anybody to do something they shouldn't? Money's a big one. Infidelity is another. So we have two of those on the board right now.
You can see there's more of a darker side to who he really was and who he wanted to show us.
As he was leaving, he said, "I'll do anything I can to cooperate, to assist, to catch this killer."
I want to speak to you every chance I can. I program your number in my phone, so when you call me, I know it's you.
And it isn't a week later when he's no longer willing to cooperate.
He had his lawyer contact us and shut off all contact.
He ghosted us. He stopped talking. He stopped cooperating.
But prosecutors did not need Sievers' cooperation to make their case. And the first test came with the trial of Jimmy Ray Rogers, everything hinging on whether a jury would believe Curtis Wayne Wright and his chilling version of the murder of Teresa Sievers.
We came there to kill her.
Teresa Sievers' mother and sister were in the courtroom every day.
Were you able to see where he was hitting her with the hammer?
In the head.
And what happened after she fell on the floor?
He continued to hit her.
He continued to hit her?
Yes.
Mr. Rogers?
Yes. I physically walked over to the area where he was at and asked him to stop. I mean, put my hand on him.
It didn't take long for the jury to return a verdict.
We have a verdict in the Jimmy Ray Rogers case. Yes, we do have a guilty verdict. We do have a guilty verdict in Jimmy Ray Rogers, but it is of second-degree murder, not a first-degree murder.
Rogers was later sentenced to 25 years in prison. But for prosecutors, there would be no justice unless they could make a case against the man they believed had hired the killers, Mark Sievers.
But for Mark Sievers, there would have been no funeral. There would have been no grieving family. There would have been no children without parents. It was important that all that participated were held accountable.
The evidence against Sievers continued to mount, including his use of prepaid, or what are called burner phones, used by both men.
Mark Sievers and Curtis Wayne Wright had a secret communication system set up.
Their code word together was switch to other or other. They would almost immediately switch over to these prepaid phones, and we were able to establish a connection.
According to what Wright told the detectives, the plan for the murder was made when Mark Sievers attended Wright's wedding in Missouri 2 months earlier.
This is basically where it all, started to come together. Mark suggested two scenarios. One was to shoot her or kill her outside of the medical practice when she was leaving work one night. Curtis explains to me, he says, well, what if she's with somebody when she comes out of the medical practice?
Right.
And Mark says, well, that'll be better because if somebody else is killed during the offense, then it's likely to keep the suspicion off of me or anybody else. So, and he explained it as collateral damage, which goes to show you the type of person Mark Sievers really is.
When the time came to arrest Mark Sievers, detectives knew from their surveillance exactly where to find him.
So there wasn't really anywhere Mr. Sievers was going to go where we couldn't find him, unless he had a ride into outer space that we didn't know about.
He was at home, but there was concern he was armed and might resist taking his daughters hostage.
When we knew that if he had been watching TV and he knows we got him, we knew we had to get Mark Sievers, but most importantly, we had to extract him and save those children.
The job fell to Detective David Levitt.
We knew he had many guns in the home, but his behavior was erratic. So that, coupled with the fact that if he knows he's getting arrested for the murder of his wife, he has guns in the home, and there's 2 little girls present. So we were very worried.
Your buddy Joey's from Hamilton? Yeah, he's
So
right
we get
from
to
where I
the door,
live.
I see the girls' heads kind of
Dundas, bro.
look towards
I'm
the
like
door. And
5
I see
minutes from
Mark
there.
Start to come towards
Not
the
even.
door.
Literally,
Phone's
like-
in his hand, and he turns around and starts to walk away. So I said to the deputy who was with me, said, we're giving this another 5 seconds and we're forcing entry. Fortunately, within half that time,
Hi.
he came back, opened the door, and leaned out with his phone in his hand and grabbed him by his wrist. You're under arrest for murdering your wife.
Your buddy Joey, what's his name?
And when
Last
Mark
name?
arrived,
Joey
he had a
Mons?
smirk that I'll never forget. It was a smirk. It was a 1,000-mile stare. He was ice cold. You could look at him and see he was ice cold, no blood in his veins, and he knew he was caught.
Joey Gardner?
But the defense was preparing a surprise twist that not only was
I don't know
Curtis
him.
Wainwright a killer,
Maybe
and a
my buddy
skilled
Crooks does,
liar,
though. He gets out more
but
than
that
me,
Wright
knows a lot
was
of people.
actually in love with Mark Sievers and killed Teresa on his own to get her out of the way.
If Curtis can't have Mark, nobody can.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Law and Crime. Right now, we are going to see opening statements at around 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in the trial of Mark Sievers.
With reporters fascinated about how much Mark Sievers and Curtis
Yeah, I'll be
looked
probably talking to him later tonight. We've been playing lots of RuneScape.
I can't wait just to see these two former best friends looking at each other in court, one of them testifying against another. That's something straight out of a movie.
For the record, both assistant state attorneys are present. Mr. Sievers is present, and both defense counsel. State's ready. Defense is ready.
The courtroom was packed, and like a wedding, there was a side for the wife, the victim's family, and a side for the husband, the accused murderer's family.
A little antagonistic in the crowd.
But unlike that day 12 years earlier, when Teresa and Mark Sievers were married, there was no joy on either side today.
We'll move to opening statements at this time. State.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
Cynthia Ross is the head of the homicide unit in the state's attorney's office. Her first priority was to make sure the jury knew the importance of her key witness, Curtis Wainwright, but that he was hardly a model citizen.
We were asking them to believe a killer.
Curtis Wainwright allows us to hear the conversations that occurred between he and Mark Sievers. To hear how Mark Sievers solicited, conspired, and arranged the murder of Teresa Sievers.
Defense.
Mark Sievers chose Michael Mummert as the lawyer to defend him in the murder case after the two bonded during proceedings over the custody of Sievers' children.
On a very personal level, he's a very nice man. He's kind of goofy, kind of funny, and over the 4 years
He's
that
just a chill
I
guy.
represented Mark, I got to like him. I really do like Mark.
You're going to hear about prepaid phones. You're going to hear about divorce.
Of course this guy likes him. He bought him a new
life
boat.
Insurance is a motive. But ultimately,
all the evidence of a conspiracy.
The feeling of
All
finding
the
something to
evidence
watch before
Mr.
this ad
Seaver's
ends.
involvement
The feeling of winning
is
number
going
one.
to come from one
This means that the number
man,
one spot belongs to the Chompy Chip.
and that's Curtis Wainwright.
I wanted to convey to the jury that this was a credibility trial of Curtis Wainwright.
Next witness.
You're going downstairs. Go say hi.
It was the very next day that Curtis Wainwright took the stand. And at first, Sievers gave off the impression of not having a care in the world, smiling and cracking jokes with his lawyer. But that would quickly change.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give...
Wright was questioned by prosecutor Hamid Hunter.
The biggest moment in the trial was Mr. Wright taking the stand. These two men have been best friends most of their lives. Mr. Wright, who killed Dr. Teresa Sievers?
Jimmy Rogers and I physically did it, but Mark Sievers was also involved in the planning.
Why did you do it?
I was asked to do it.
By whom?
Mr. Sievers.
Is Mr. Sievers in court today?
Yes, he is.
Can you please point to Mr. Sievers and identify him by an article of clothing?
He's the middle gentleman there at the table. The darker colored jacket.
Well, I'm not a fan of Curtis Wright. He's a killer. He's an admitted killer. And so we went straight at him. There wasn't going to be any compromises for Mr. Wright.
And Wright was immediately confronted about his earlier lies when he tried to pin all the blame on Jimmy Ray Rogers.
Did you tell us the truth?
Not in the beginning.
Started out with a lie?
Well, it started out with the truth, but it got off in the middle, and then those lies were corrected. I told the truth before the end of that statement.
Watching all this in the courtroom was Sievers' stepmother from Missouri, who has known Wright since he was 12 years old.
I'm not a human lie detector, but he did a magnificent job of lying. He's a pathological liar.
Wright testified that he and Sievers, that's Sievers on the left, made the deal to kill Teresa at Wright's wedding in Missouri a few months earlier.
He told me that he and Teresa were having problems, marital problems. He told me that she was having an affair, and that they were having financial problems as well, considering bankruptcy.
Did he ask me to do anything?
He told me that really the only option that he had was for her to die. And he said that he needed to have her killed.
Wright said he received a $600 check from Sievers to cover expenses for driving to Florida, with the promise of much more to come.
He said that there was a lot of insurance, that him and the kids would be well taken care of, and that he had at least $100,000 to offer to have it done.
And then Wright's chilling description of how Dr. Teresa Sievers was killed the night she returned home alone, just as he had testified earlier at the trial of Jimmy Ray Rogers.
The headlights would have been right on me. I jumped up and I followed her into the house.
And when she started to turn towards you, what did you do?
I hit her. I hit her with the hammer.
Does she see you?
Yes, because I accidentally kicked the dog dish over. The dishes went flying everywhere. It made a huge noise. It startled her. I was afraid that if she turned around, she would scratch me or do something to leave evidence. I swung the hammer and I hit her.
Did you and Dr. Sievers ever make eye contact?
Yes.
How did she look when you made eye contact with her?
Surprised.
Did she fight?
Yeah.
You fought for her life?
Yeah. I never in a million years envisioned beating her to death with a hammer.
On cross-examination of Wright, Mark Sievers' lawyer tried to push a theory about Wright's sexual orientation that he thought would explain what happened.
Detective Levitt asked you about your sexual preference, didn't he?
Yes.
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Detective Levitt wanted to know if you had a sexual relationship with Mark Sievers, didn't you?
Objection. Relevance.
Sustained.
The judge told Mummert to move on.
That was a tough one because there was something there. There was this air of possessiveness or intimacy, and if Curtis can't have Mark, nobody can. My theory is that when Mark went to Curtis's wedding, that Curtis just had enough. Mark married a beautiful doctor. Mark had 2 beautiful girls. Mark lived in a nice home in Bonita Springs, Florida. Why does Mark get to have it all? And I believe that anger, as well as a possible, sexual attraction to Mark, caused the basis for Curtis to finally say, no, I've had enough. I'm gonna go down there, I'm gonna kill Mark's wife.
But Judge Bruce Kyle was having none of it, and Mummert had to change his tact, now challenging Wright about the money he claims Sievers promised him. Why didn't Sievers just tell him to take the cash that was in the house?
You know that there was nearly $50,000 in that home, is that correct?
I found that out later, but no, I didn't know that.
So there was $50,000 when you went down to commit the murder, is that correct?
Objection, Your Honor.
I don't know.
Sustained. Proper.
Mr. Sievers never said, I have all this money and I'm going to set it aside for you and you just take it, correct?
Correct.
And then after the murder, you came down again for the funeral, is that correct?
Yes.
Having the mission completed, right?
Yes.
Did you ever get $50,000 in cash at that time?
No, our agreement was it would be paid after he got his life insurance payment.
I don't believe Mark ever gave the go-ahead. But Teresa was worth more alive than dead. Why would he want to give that up?
As Sievers watched his best friend testify, the smiles and jokes seemed to be replaced by tears and grief. Was it authentic or a performance for the jury?
For us, it seemed that Mark Sievers was not the grieving husband, but just someone who could bring on tears when desired. And so we hoped that the jury would see those tears for what they were, not of those of a grieving husband, but those of a manipulator.
But some of the jurors had been in tears too.
The evidence has shown that Mark Sievers hired Curtis Wright, his best friend, to kill his wife, Dr. Teresa Sievers. An unconscionable act in light of that sacred contract. So Mr. Wright is a felon. He's an admitted liar. Did you tell us the truth?
Not in the beginning.
He's a killer. I mean, Mr. Sievers could ask you to kill his wife and you would actually consider it?
Yes.
By himself, there's no reason why any reasonable person should believe a word he says. But he's corroborated by evidence. Mr. Wright says he came to Florida to kill Dr. Sievers with Jimmy Rogers. There's evidence of that. Corroborative evidence. I want you to consider asking why. I want you to keep asking why. She's not a captain of industry. She's not a politician.
Hi, I'm Dr. Teresa Sievers.
She's a medical doctor and a mother of 2 and a wife. And she's dead.
Good morning. You've now heard all the evidence. On one question, no one's answered. Why? Why? Why is Teresa Sievers dead? The best answer we can give you is she is dead because Curtis Wayne Wright killed her. And without Mr. Wright, there is no case. And the crime scene itself, those photos, they're hard to look at. And they're hard to look at because that crime scene is anger, and it's violence, and it's rage, and it's hate. It is not murder for money. Ultimately, the one question you all have to ask yourselves: do you trust Curtis Wainwright?
The jury began its deliberations just before lunchtime.
You know, you always hope it'll be fast because of the anxiety and waiting for the verdict.
When the jury goes out, you just say, we did everything we could. We did everything that we reasonably could.
It was only 4 hours later when the judge called everyone back into court.
I've been told we have a verdict. State's ready. Defense is ready. So either side need any time to talk to their sides or their parties, because these things are tough, and I'm not going to have any outbursts. We'll let the clerk publish the verdict.
This was almost the perfect crime.
In the Circuit Court of the 20th Judicial Circuit, in and for Lee County, Florida, criminal action. State of Florida versus Mark D. Sievers, case number 15 CF 673B.
Do you trust Curtis Wainwright?
Verdict. We, the jury, find as follows as to the defendant in this case. Count 1, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Conspiracy. The defendant is guilty of conspiracy. So say we all, December 4th, 2019, by the foreperson.
He broke down eventually there, but when that verdict was read, he was pretty stoic.
Now the question of how Mark Sievers should be punished.
My partner and I were going to have to sit down now and ask this jury to recommend a sentence of death for Mr. Sievers.
The jury would have to find the murder was committed for either pecuniary, financial gain, or in a cold, calculated manner, or both. And the jury also had to consider what's called a victim impact statement from Teresa Sievers' mother, Mary Ann Groves, who is now allowed to speak publicly of her loss and her grief.
And of course, the biggest loss falls upon her two daughters, whom Teresa loved with all her heart. These two girls have been robbed of their remarkable mother, their home, their pets, their possessions, their family and friends. Teresa will not be able to love and guide them. She won't be there when they graduate high school or when they need their mother to kiss away tears from their first heartbreak. We have lost our Teresa, the light of our lives, the star of our family, who loved us all so fiercely. It has been hard for all of us to go on with our daily lives. The void is unimaginable. She was our strength, our inspiration, and our caretaker.
Only one juror needed to oppose the sentence of death, and the jury was back in just 3 hours. The first question the jury had to answer was the murder committed for financial, pecuniary reasons.
The capital murder was committed for pecuniary gain? No.
Now the question of whether the murder was committed in a cold, calculated manner.
Yes. We, the jury, unanimously find that Mark Sievers should be sentenced to death? Yes.
But the judge still had the power to overrule the jury's death sentence, and he revealed something the jury had not been told. Sievers' eldest daughter had written a letter asking that her father's life be spared.
The letter essentially said, in not so many words, while I don't want a relationship with my father, if I decide that I might at some time in the future, I can't have that if he is sentenced to death and taken from me.
And then, for the first time, the court heard from Mark Sievers, defiant and showing no signs of remorse.
Is it okay if I refer to my notes?
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Although a jury found me guilty, I am innocent of all charges, as I've maintained since this heinous crime took place. I love my wife, Teresa, and our 2 daughters, Josie and Carmi, with all my heart. Our girls have tragically lost their mommy, and now they're about to lose their daddy as well. Therefore, I respectfully ask the court for life, as not to compound their loss and suffering.
Okay, I'm back.
I am grateful, however, that the court can only determine my fate on earth.
What the fuck is this shit?
He was hip-hop's biggest mogul.
This fucking goofball needs to resign. Jamit Sahinj or whatever the fuck. That goofball needs to get the fuck out. He was literally a liberal last year. What a cuck little cunt. Canada's in fucking shambles, man. We're fucked. Bro, holy shit, Metal Gear Solid. I remember playing this Metal Gear Solid shit back in the day, bro.
Black screen?
Yeah, Fallujah style.
Anyone watching behind us?
Me and Yusuf are.
To a lot of you, this may not sound right for a few reasons. Number one, this is one of the few pets with a hard requirement, needing the elite Western Diary to even be able to roll for the pet. For this, you need a whopping 1,000 Chompy KC before you can even start the grind. This may also sound weird, because the quote-unquote drop rate for this pet is 1 in 500, when the Chaos Elemental is much lower, leading to a potentially faster pet. But remember that it is 1 in 500 for both the kill and when you pluck the Chompy. I agree with both of these, but I truly see this pet grind starting as soon as you're able to obtain it, because I don't personally know anyone who grinds for the Western Diary just for the pet. If you can look past these two things, in my personal opinion, this is actually the fastest pet to obtain once you meet all the requirements. I remember I got this pet within 30 minutes because with the Elite Western Diary perk of 2 Chompies spawning for every frog, and the double loot roll, you are essentially getting 4 rolls at a pet every time those frog balloons attract the birds. This means a 1 in 125 for every one of these events, and once you lay them on the ground, they will come at you super fast. As you saw before, most of your damage will come from an Ogre Comp Bow and the rune Brutal Arrows, and take the best range gear possible. Your inventory should be filled with Ogre Bellows.
It's crazy. Um. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm just gonna probably hop off for now. fuck. Do my own thing. Appreciate y'all for chilling. I hope y'all have a good night. I might be live later or something, you know? We'll see.